Okay. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Baiju's Exam Prep IAS. This is Shyam Kagud here. If I'm audible to you, please give me a thumbs up and do let me know that I'm audible so that we can start the discussion for the day. Done. Thanks a lot. Let's start. So, yesterday we were discussing infrastructure. Today we'll continue with the discussion in infrastructure. But before that, as I had promised to you people, the list of the articles. Last week I was not able to give because Friday class was not there. So you will see there is a list of the articles which I've given. Either you can use the PPT, annotated PPT without annotation. Either one of them is okay. Or else, please do let me know. I'll paste the link now. Let me know that the link is visible. I'm going to paste the link now. Okay, how about now? Is the link visible to all of you? Right, there is a comment made by a person called as Sham. That is me, by the way. Right, so that particular comment is nothing but it's a link. It's a link of the articles which are there. Okay. So please download this particular PPT or let's say the list of the articles, read this list of the articles and do let me know whether these articles are all related to UPSC or not. And by the way, I've ensured that I will not take articles from Hindu, assuming that you people are reading from Hindu. Okay. Assuming that you people are reading from Hindu, I have not taken the articles from Hindu. I've taken articles from Business Standard, Mint newspaper, Indian Express, Financial Express, Economic Times. So these are the different newspapers from which I've taken important articles related to what we have discussed. Right. So please download that and read those articles and let me know. Okay. Now, yesterday what we have done, we started with infrastructure, correct? We started the discussion with infrastructure. What we have discussed yesterday in the context of infrastructure, what do you mean by infrastructure? Anything that will provide, right, services. Anything that will provide services which will support growth, which will support development in a country, that is called as basically infrastructure. And in infrastructure, we have discussed two types of infrastructure. One is power sector. Second one is basically railway sector. One is power sector. Second one is railway sector. What is the static relevant information for you? What kind of issues are there? Right? What are the reforms that have been undertaken by the government in both railways as well as power sector? We have discussed. Now let me start the discussion. But before that, two very important announcements. Two very important announcements. As per the schedule, I repeat, as per the schedule, today economics is the last class. But because I've missed two sessions last week, because I was not able to take sessions on Thursday and Friday, this Saturday we are going to have classes. This Saturday, starting 12, right? 12 p.m. by the way. So starting 12 p.m. and those who are wondering what is that 12 p.m. Afternoon 12 p.m. we will have sessions, right, continuously. Two sessions will take and we'll basically finish off whatever is left out in the syllabus. Some topics are left out, right? For example, half of the planning will be left out. Today we'll start with planning after infrastructure. So some part of the planning, right, inclusive growth, IMF, etc., which I'm expecting it will take around 5 to 6 hours. All these topics put together will start from 12, and by evening we will finish off all these particular topics. I'll give you lunch break. Please do not worry about it. Some of you are worried about lunch break, tea break. I will give you lunch break. I'll give you tea break even on Saturday. Please don't worry. So those who are asking, sir, what about those two sessions you have missed? Right? What about right, those two sessions? We will take it on Saturday. We'll take it on Saturday. And interestingly, there is one student who says, right, that's too boring. My dear, it's economics. I cannot dance. I cannot sing a song. I cannot dance. I cannot start acting. Right? I'm not SRK, by the way. So it's economics. Right? It's economics. You will have to learn it. Whether you like it, you don't like it, you find it interesting, you don't find it interesting, whether you hate it, love it, doesn't matter. UPSC is not bothered about it. What is UPSC bothered about? Whether can you write the answer or not? Can you find the correct answer or not? That is the most important point. Okay, so Saturday, right? So Saturday, 12 p.m. we will have session. Okay, Saturday, 12 p.m. Again, which Saturday? Coming Saturday. Today is Tuesday. After a couple of days, we'll come across Saturday. All of you know. After Tuesday, Friday, then Saturday. So Saturday, 12 p.m. Done. So we'll start from 12 o'clock. We'll finish all the other remaining topics. Right. That is basically the end of GS paper 3 economics part for you. GS paper 3 economics part. Right. I'm not saying SNT is over. No, I'm saying GS paper 3 economics part will be over. Okay. So that is first one. Second one. Since this is a last class today, there will be a feedback form sent to all of you. Right? There is a feedback form which will be sent to all of you. If you have not received the feedback form, then basically the SMEs, right, the co-organizers will be pasting the link of the feedback form in the comment section. You can take the link and provide your valuable feedback. So these are the two very important announcements I was supposed to make. Now let's start the discussion. Second, I'm sorry, the third type of infrastructure. Okay, the third type of infrastructure will be road infrastructure. The third type. First one we have discussed is power. Second one is road. I'm sorry, second one was railways. Third one is road infrastructure. Now, in the context of road infrastructure, what are the important points? What are the basic points? Road infrastructure, we have the government which will construct a road, and we also have private sector. In a sense, right, in case of development of road infrastructure, both government as well as private sector both are present. That is point number one. Point number two, at the central level we have one ministry, that is a ministry of roadways, which is responsible for development of road network. Right, Ministry of Roadways is responsible. Right, in fact, MORTH, the long form, I'm sorry, the acronym, the short form of this ministry will be MORTH, Ministry of Roadways, Transportation and Highways, MORTH. Okay, so at the central level we have Ministry of Roadways, which is responsible for development of road infrastructure in India. Third very important point, whenever you talk about roads, there are different types of roads in India. We have national highways, correct? We have national highways. We also have state highways. SH means a national highway. Sorry, NH means national highway. SH means state highways. And we also have other roads. Sir, what will come under the other roads? Municipality roads, city roads, or for that matter, rural roads. So we have national highways, we have state highways, and we also have other road networks within India. Fourth very important point. There are different modes of transportation which are used in India. There are different modes, different types of transportations which are transportation methods which are available. For example, we use railways for transportation. We use roadways for transportation. We use waterways. We'll discuss that after some time. We'll use waterways for transportation. We're also using civil aviation market, that is airways, for transportation purposes. But if you look at all of these, if you look at roadways, waterways, etc., most of the transportation in case of India is done using road network itself. I repeat, most of the transportation in India is done using road network itself. Now, if you just think of it, think logically and tell me, if most of the transportation is done using roads, don't you think most of the emissions which are caused because of transportation, I'll repeat, most of the emissions, pollution that will be caused in transportation sector, is it okay if I say it will also come from road sector only? Does it make sense to you? It will also come from the road sector. And what about consumption of fuels? What about consumption of fuels? Even the consumption of fuels is majorly done in the road sector itself. So I hope you understand these are certain important basic points related to road network. Now let's look at certain important issues or problems related to road network. What are the issues or problems related to road network? Point number one, most of the roads in India, I repeat, most of the road network in case of India is other roads. I'll show you the data. Please do not by heart this data. Please do not by heart this data. It is not needed. Why? Think of it as per this data. As per this data, the total length of road network in case of India is how much? 63 lakh kilometers. The total length of road network is 63 lakh kilometers. Now, do you think this length of road network will remain constant? Don't you think on day-to-day basis we are continuously developing or constructing road networks in India? Which essentially means today it might be let's say 64 lakh crores. I'm sorry, 64 lakh kilometers. By the time you write the exam next year, let's say mains exam next year, that is more than 1 year, the number of, or let's say the length of the road network will be definitely more than what is the length today. But what you should remember then, whatever is the length of the total road network in India, hardly around 5%. In fact, it is less than 5. I'll show you the data. Hardly around 5% is highways. Hardly around 5% is highways, which means remaining 95% plus. Remaining 95% plus is in the form of city roads, is in the form of municipality roads, is in the form of rural roads, etc. Now, why this is important? Why is it so relevant? Just think of it. On one side, we are saying most of the transportation in India is done through roadways. Fact number one, okay? Most of the transportation is done through road network. Point number two, that is also factual information. Only around 5%, that is less than 5%, is highways. Remaining more than 95% are other roads. Now, you tell me, if you're going to use a road as a mode of a transportation, will you transport it using highways or will you transport it using municipality roads or rural roads? All of you will agree with me when I say that transportation will be done using highways itself. But what is the length of highways? Just 5% of the total network in India, road network in India, is highways. So don't you think there is a disproportionate, I'll repeat the statement. There is a disproportionate pressure traffic on the highways compared to how many highways we have in India. And I'll add one more point here. I'll add one more point. If you have highways, within highways also, there can be two-lane highways. There can be two-lane highways. There can be four-lane highways. There can be six-lane highways. There can be eight-lane highways, or 10-lane, etc. Now, don't you think if you want to increase the speed of transportation, you want to reduce the time taken for transportation, number of lanes in the highways should be higher? Does it make sense to you? You want to increase the speed, you want to reduce the time taken for transportation. Does it not make sense if I say more the lanes in a highway, automatically speed will be higher, time taken will be lesser? In case of India, a large chunk of highways, large percentage of highways are two-laned highways only. Even at the national highway levels, large portion of highways are two-laned highways. Now, government of India is converting these two lanes into four lanes, and new highways which are constructed, new expressways which are constructed are 8 lanes, 6 lanes, 10 lanes, etc. Can I give you one example? Can I give you one example? Not national highway, but an expressway. Look at the picture, right? Go to Google and look at the picture of the Delhi Mumbai Expressway. Look at the picture. You will realize that there are multiple lanes, right? On both the sides of the road, there are multiple lanes, 4 lanes, right? Total 8 lanes. They are saying we can even extend it to 10 lanes if I want, 12 lanes if I want. What is the advantage of it? Advantage is more the lanes, higher the number of lanes, it is going to take lesser time for transportation. And if we take lesser time of transportation, it takes lesser time to transport, can I say, it will also have a direct bearing on how much will be the fuel consumed? Yes or no? If you're going to take lesser time for transportation of the goods, Will it not reduce the fuel requirement for transportation? Of course, yes. So that is the whole idea. Please remember this, right? So in case of India, coming back to issues now, in case of India, right? The issues in case of national highways are point number road network, generally road network or logistics sector is that point number one. Very small percentage of road network is national highways and state highways, and the other road network comprises more than 95%. But on the other side, most of the transportation in India is done through road network, which means there is a very high pressure on the road network in case of India. Traffic is higher, time taken for transportation is higher, and even for that matter, when the traffic is so high on the highways, don't you think the cases of accidents will also be higher? In fact, in case of India, we have a very high number of accidents on the roadways. Very, very high number of accidents. Why? Number of lanes are lesser, traffic is high. Automatically, cases of accidents will be very, very high. Done? So, very low proportion of national highways, because the 2-lane highways are lesser, 8-lane highways are lesser, 10-lane highways are lesser, etc. Time taken for transportation will start increasing. Fuel consumption will also be higher. Cost of transportation will also be higher. That is another issue. Third issue, you want to construct highways, you want to construct road network, you have to acquire land for that, correct? You need land for it. And is it easy to acquire land in India? Anybody who has come across a newspaper article which says, or any book which says, it is very, very easy to acquire land in India for development of infrastructure project? Please do let me know if you have come across that statement. Because the answer is no. It is not at all easy to acquire land in India. It is not at all easy. Why? I'll give a very simple example. Many of you ask me, sir, why it is not easy? Right? How many of you have heard of title or ownership of land? Title or ownership of land. Right? I'll just take a detour. I'll just deviate a bit. Again, related to UPSC only. It is related to UPSC only. What is the concept of a title or ownership? For example, imagine you want to develop a manufacturing facility. You will come to me. I will say, this is right, the document of this land. I am the owner of this document. Right? In the document, my name is there, survey number is there, which means I am the owner. So title, the ownership is mine. But have you not seen cases where there will be one more person who will have similar document, same document, except in that document, the owner name will be different? Yes? Have you come across such instances? Even if you have not seen it in real life, have you seen this at least in TV, right, in movies, etc., etc.? That is the problem of title or ownership. That is the problem of title or ownership. Why? Please understand this. Now, Government of India is making everything digital. Everything is being done digital now. That is, the land records will be made digital now. But even today, what is the issue? Issue is simple. There are multiple people who claim ownership over the land. And ultimately, what will happen? That will fall into judiciary. They will file a case. And remember this, if a land piece will fall into litigation like this, it is not resolved very soon in India. It is not at all right, so resolved very soon. In fact, as per one survey, it generally takes around 20 years, right, to resolve a case related to land litigation. It generally takes around 20 years, on an average 20 years, to resolve a case where the land falls into litigation. And it's not that always the land will fall into litigation, not necessarily. I'll give you one more example. Right? Imagine there is one person X, and the person X has 3 kids, right? A, B, and C. And if this person X, right, will pass away, will right, basically die, and he doesn't have any will, there are no papers, how much land should go to whom, there is absolutely no document. Now tell me, do you think all the 3 siblings ABC will sit together, right? They will talk to each other very fondly, very lovingly. And do you think they will distribute the land amongst themselves without any issues? Have you seen any family doing that? These are very rare. Such instances are very, very rare. What will happen most of the times? The eldest son will go and say, right, I am the eldest son, I will have the ownership. And other people will say, why only you should get the ownership, we also should get ownership. As a result of this, again they'll fight with each other, they'll file cases against each other, land will fall into litigation. So at least now tell me, does it make sense to you, right? Why it is very difficult to acquire land? The land titles, remember one term, land titles are not very clear in India. Land titles are not very clear. And in fact, right, I'll just give a hint here. If you're writing a mains question on, let's say, agriculture sector, if I ask you, right, what recommendations would you provide to increase the incomes of the farmers? Please write this as a recommendation. Making land titles clear will help farmers. I'll prove it. Just give me a minute. Making the land titles clear will always help rural India. Of course, it will help rest of India also. But in the context of rural India, agriculture sector, farmers, clear titles will always help. How? Imagine I'm a farmer. Okay, imagine I'm a farmer. I have a piece of land. Now my sibling will come fight with me saying that he is also or she is also supposed to get certain amount of land, right? Because that land has been given to me by my father or my parents. Now I will not agree to my sibling. As a result of that, right, he or she will file a case. The land will fall into litigation. Now please tell me, can I take a loan giving this land as a collateral? Think of it, right? Either me or my sibling. Can anybody use this land as a collateral to take a loan from bank? Nobody will touch it. Nobody will give you loan. What if I want to sell? Right? I'll decide, okay, I want to sell it. I want to get money. I want to set up a micro enterprise. Do you think anybody in the market will purchase that land, which is already into litigation? Again, nobody will purchase. So now is it okay if I say, if lot of land falls into litigation, no doubt it is pressure on judiciary. Judiciary will come under lot of pressure. I will borrow the statement given by Chief Justice of India. Right? The courts will become Tariq pe Tariq courts. Correct? Right? If you're reading newspapers, the courts will end up becoming Tariq pe Tariq courts. Right? So judiciary, it will become lot of pressure on judiciary. No doubt regarding that. But the asset, land is an asset. The asset will get stuck up in the system now. Neither can I use, nor anybody else can use it. Can we set up a manufacturing unit? No, not allowed. Can we construct a road, right, using this land as a part of the road infrastructure project? Not possible. Can I use it for cultivation purposes? Not possible. Can I take a loan? Not possible. So I hope you understand the problem behind the issues of land in India. Okay, this is one part and one part of problem related to land in India. Done. So let me get back to the discussion here. Land acquisition for the development of infrastructure, for every type of infrastructure in India, is very difficult. Very, very difficult. Fourth point, there have been a lot of delays in the completion of the projects, either because of right, no access to raw materials, or because of the pandemic, right, labor was not available, or because the technology is not not allowed to be imported into India, etc. So lot of these right projects associated with the development of road infrastructure, there have been delays. And yesterday we have established this. Whenever there's a delay in the development of a project, any project for that matter, the cost associated with the project will start increasing. And finally, large part of logistics, I'm just going beyond road network now, large part of logistics in India is not right organized, it is unorganized. For example, have you heard of a company called as Porter? Let me see how many are watching cricket World Cup at least. Have you heard of a company, Porter, Portr? What is the company Porter known for? It is part of the logistics sector. It is part of logistics sector. Now, if you want to transport in any part of India, that is, assume you have been right shifted from right one metro city to another metro city. Don't you prefer a bigger operator, bigger company such as Porter to provide logistics services to you? Yes or no? Does it make sense or not? Right? You have been, imagine you have become right a government officer now. You have been transferred. Right? You have been transferred from one city to another city, or you're a software engineer. You have been transferred. So when you are moving from one city to another city, one part of India to another part of India, you would prefer companies which have larger presence, pan India presence, because they will have right sufficient number of people, they will have logistical support to you, they will have customer helpline, etc., etc. But in case of India, whenever you talk about logistics sector, small, very small regional players are very high, numbers are very high compared to large players in the market. That is the reason I have written the logistics sector in case of India. Most of the players present in the logistics sector are unorganized. Very few are organized. Right? So this is also a concern. This is also a concern because understand this. Transportation using road network is a part of logistics sector. Right? So if you want to improve the whole logistics sector, one part of it, that is road sector, we will have to work on improvement in road infrastructure as well. Done. So these are some of the issues associated with this. Now, before I go forward, there is one more part of the picture here. Please make an observation. In fact, I've told you this. Now make an observation. What is this picture? Right side of the picture providing the information upon? It is providing information related to the total number of PPP projects. I repeat, total number of PPP. What is PPP? Public-private partnership. The total number of PPP projects. So as per the government data, in which sector the central government, I repeat, central government, this data is for central union government. As per the picture, all of you okay if I say more than 50% of the PPP projects which have been entered upon by the union government, more than 50% are in the road sector. And right, apart from road sector, we allow PPP in airports. We allow PPP in ports sector. We allow PPP in multiple infrastructure projects. How much is present in all the remaining type of infrastructure projects? Hardly around 45%. Hardly around 45%. And in fact, I think yesterday I've told you this. In railways, the government is promoting PPP. Participation is very less. Participation is very less. In ports, now they are showing interest. In airports, very recently it has started becoming attractive. But roadways historically has been very attractive for the private players for a very simple reason. The policies are framed in such a way that it will promote more and more participation of the private sector. There is a revenue model, very good revenue model which is available for private sector players in road network. That is the precise reason most of the PPP projects wherein the central government is a party, they are in the roadway sector. Now, what kind of reforms have been implemented by the government? Let's go one by one. What kind of reforms? One is new model of investment to attract private sector has been introduced in India. For example, do you remember hybrid annuity model? Let me know. I believe yesterday only we have discussed this. Hybrid annuity model. What is done in hybrid annuity model? 40% of the project cost will be given by the government in the first 5 years. Remaining 60% invested by the private sector. And once the project is over, private sector will hand over the project to the government. Government will have the right to control tolls, but the private sector will have to maintain the road. That is basically repairs of the road has to be done by the private sector. For the investment done by the private sector, government says, right, I will give you annually, I will return certain amount along with interest plus, right, whatever bank rate is there, extra 3% in addition to the bank rate. Right, so that was basically the model of hybrid annuity, which has certain features of the BOT, build operated transfer, and certain features of EPC, engineering procurement construction. Okay, so new type of investment models are being implemented, which will attract more and more participation of the private sector. Second one, new types of measures or the steps have been taken in order to reduce the cost of transportation. New measures, for example, please tell me, right, open your book from your memory and tell me, all of you remember how GST will help in reducing the cost of transportation? Let me see. Do you remember how goods and services tax GST will reduce the cost of transportation? Reason was simple. If you remember the explanation, it was simple. Before the GST was introduced, there was a concept of a check post. Right, there was a check post at every state border. Now we are eliminating all the check posts. As a result of this, the goods from one state to another state will move much more easily. Time for transportation will come down, cost of transportation will also come down. Next one, FASTag. Right, all of you seen FASTag, by the way, right? Either in your own car, your parents' car, your siblings' car, or your neighbor's car. All of you seen FASTag? FASTag basically is a technology. If you ask me, sir, what is FASTag? It's a technology, right? What is the use of the technology? Government of India says, if you see a highway, let's say this is a highway, after certain distance, after certain interval, there will be toll. Correct? There will be a toll collection. And the problem is, whenever there is a toll booth, the number of vehicles which are going to stand, the length of the queue, the number of vehicles will increase if everybody is paying cash. If they are paying the cash, right, that is a toll. If they pay in cash, they will pay, right? The person will give you a slip. Next, the person will start counting change. He will give you change or she will give you change. Now you will count the change. You will put it in the pocket, then start your vehicle and pass through the toll. Time taken will be longer. And when the time taken is longer, the queue, right, that is how many vehicles are waiting to pass through the toll, that queue will also increase. And when the queue will increase, automatically that will delay. It will increase the time for transportation, right? The fuel consumption will increase, time for transportation will increase, etc., etc. Now, in order to address that itself, in order to address that issue, government has introduced the concept called as, right, the FASTag. And in case of FASTag, what will happen? Imagine this is your vehicle. Your vehicle will go, right? There will be a scanner, right? In the toll, there will be a scanner. The scanner will scan your, right, the code, and automatically from your account, money will be deducted. You don't have to pay cash, right? You don't have to count the change, etc. Money will be deducted, and now you can cross the toll. So with the introduction of the FASTag, the time taken for transportation, that is at the toll especially, will come down. The queue, the length of the vehicles which are waiting, that will also come down. Time for transportation, fuel consumption, etc. will come down. So that is one more very important measure which has been introduced by the government, in which is going to help in reducing the cost of transportation. Third one, logistics sector has been given infrastructure status. Now, many of you will ask me, sir, what is the meaning of infrastructure status? If it is given, what is the use of it? Earlier also, we have come across the term infrastructure status. I'll just refresh your memory, jog your memory. Do you remember agriculture processing? Let me know. Last week, we covered a topic by the name of agriculture processing. That is agriculture food processing, by the way. If you ask me, sir, what is agriculture processing? Food processing. In food processing, within reforms, within the reforms that we discussed, there was one reform regarding cold chain. There was one reform regarding cold chain infrastructure. And I had written a statement. Cold chain infrastructure has been given infrastructure status. The cold chain has been given infrastructure status. Now, what do you mean by that? What is the importance? If you are given infrastructure status, what will happen? reasons or outcomes are very simple. Once you have been designated, once you have been given with infrastructure status, you can borrow for long term from the market. You can borrow from, right, long term investors, a long term borrowing you can do, right? Reason being very simple. Tell me, infrastructure, does it by default, does it not mean if you take a loan, you will require it for long duration? Yes or no? When you talk about infrastructure, by default, does it not mean if you borrow, you will borrow for longer duration? You want to borrow for longer duration. So once you are given infrastructure status, now you can easily borrow for longer duration in the market. Now, because I'm discussing longer duration, let me ask you a very simple question. Let me ask you a very simple question. Tell me whether I given this article earlier or not, or have I told this in the classroom or not. For the first time, has Government of India issued 50-year bonds or not? Did I tell you about this in the classroom? I believe last week also I've told, and I believe one article that I've given is related to 50-year bonds, right? That is, if you ask me, sir, where you have told this, some of you are saying, no, sir, you have not told it. Open the banking chapter PPT. Open banking chapter PPT, and there is a slide on government securities. There's a slide on government securities. Okay. And in government securities, on one side, I've written treasury bills, and on the other side, I've written dated securities. On one side, I've written, right, the treasury bills, and on the other side, I've written dated securities. And under the dated securities, I'd written 2-year, 3-year, right, let's say 10 years, 30 years, and 40 years. This was there in the PPT, printed, typed in the PPT. In fact, I said, until now, the 40-year bond was the longest tenure government bond. I've written also. I put wrong and I wrote it. Right? Until now, 40-year bond was the bond with the longest tenure. But last week, Government of India, for the first time ever, has issued a 50-year bond. Remember that. Suddenly UPSC can ask you all of this. Right? Government of India, for the first time, has issued 50-year bond. Now, why? What is the reason? What is the reason? Please understand this. There are certain investors in the market who are called as long-term investors. There are investors who are referred to as long-term investors. And if you want to know the example of a long-term investor, the best example is insurance companies. Insurance companies, or for that matter, one more type of long-term investor is pension companies. They will call this as pension funds. Insurance funds and pension funds. Why pension funds are called as a long-term investors in the market? What is the logic behind it? Now, if you have seen any advertisement or if you invest in any pension instrument, please tell me, is it a long-term investment that you have done or a short-term investment that you people are doing? Think of it. Right? Once you become IAS officer, again, most of it says, sir, who is working for pension once I become IAS officer? I want to be settled during service only. I'm not looking at pension, but let's assume, right? Once you start contributing to pension, will you do it for long term or short term? Long term. Long term. Why? Let's say you'll start contributing into a pension fund at the age of, let's say, 25 years. From 25 years, you'll start contributing. What is your retirement age? Retirement age is 60 years. Correct? Retirement age is 60 years, and you will start getting pension after 60 years only, which means your contribution are for 35-year duration. Is it not long-term investments? Correct? Is it not long-term? Of course, yes. These are very long-term investments. That is the precise reason. Whatever companies will provide you these pension products, they know that you are not looking at short-term returns, you are looking at long-term returns. You want to get returns after 35 years, after, let's say, 32 years, after 40 years, assuming you will invest in at the age of 20. So they will have these funds for a very long duration. And because they have these funds for a very long duration, don't you think automatically they will also start investing in long-term instruments in the market? Yes or no? Does it make sense to you or not? They will also start investing in long-term instruments in the market. That is the precise reason until now, Government of India had bonds with a maturity period of 40 years. But many of such these companies, insurance companies, pension companies, etc., they were asking Government of India, please issue bonds with higher maturity, even more than 40 years, we want to purchase it. Please issue them. And that is the precise reason Government of India last Friday for the first time issued 50-year bonds. And now tell me, if government will issue these 50-year bonds, don't you think the pension funds, insurance funds, etc., they will buy out majority of these bonds from the government? Correct? They will buy out majority of these instruments, long-term instruments of the government. So if you come across the newspaper article regarding this, don't get confused. Don't have confusion why the pension companies are purchasing them, why there's a demand for such bonds when already 40 years is there, why 50-year bond is needed, etc. These are certain arguments in relation to that. Now come back to this. Read the first point. All of you okay with this? These can borrow from long-term investors by issuing bonds in the market. They can easily borrow. That is the first advantage. Second advantage is they can even go to the foreign market, borrow from the foreign market now. If you're given infrastructure status, you can go to the foreign market, borrow from the foreign market. That is also allowed. Right? That is the second advantage. And third advantage is there are certain specific type of institutions in India which will provide loans for infra projects. I'll repeat the statement. There are certain types of institutions in India which will provide loans for only infra projects. Right? Such institutions, they will provide loans, and because you have an infrastructure status now, you can approach them, take a loan from them. For example, India Infrastructure Financing Company, IIFC. They will provide loans only for infra projects, not for other projects. Right? So these are certain advantages once you have been given the status of infrastructure sector. Okay. Next, new logistics division also has been created by the government under the Ministry of Commerce. Under the Ministry of Commerce, Government of India has set up a division by the name of Logistics Division. And what is the importance of this Logistics Division? The Logistics Division will study, and if there is a need for any new policy, it will recommend to the government. Right? If they want to implement a new policy, they will receive the recommendations from the Logistics Division. Or if there are already existing issues, right, there is a policy, there is certain problems related to policy, the Logistics Division will give recommendation to the government to make changes, in the existing policy. That is also done. Right? Improvement in existing processes or procedures, recommendation can be provided. If there are any issues, the division will identify these issues. And if there is a need to introduce any kind of technology in the sector, if there's a need to introduce any kind of a technology in the sector, that also will be recommended, can be implemented by the Logistics Division. So this is one more very important reform that has been implemented by the government starting from 2017. Next one, right? There is a initiative called as Bharatmala initiative, right? Bharatmala Pariyojana. And there's an initiative by the name of Bharatmala Pariyojana. Under Bharatmala Pariyojana, Government of India wants to construct expressways. They want to construct coastal roads. They want to construct right border roads, etc. So that is one more initiative where different types of road infrastructure they want to develop, they want to construct. Okay. Next one is Bhumi Rashi portal. Right, Bhumi Rashi portal. Now, what is this Bhumi Rashi portal? Let me explain it. Let me start with a very simple example. Imagine the Ministry of Roadways, they want to construct a new infrastructure project. They want to construct a national highway. Earlier, what used to happen was they will prepare a report, send it to Ministry of Finance. Now, Ministry of Finance will approve this project. Now they will send it to, let's say, Ministry of Urban Development, because the land needs to be acquired from cities as well as villages. So now Ministry of Urban Development will approve. Now it will be sent to Ministry of Rural Development. They will give approval. Now please tell me, if a project requires approvals from multiple ministries, can I say the time taken automatically will start increasing if a physical document has to be sent to every ministry? Let me know. If this file has to be sent from one department to another department, then to the third department, then to the fourth department, will it take more time or not? Of course, yes. Right? There will be huge delays in terms of, or time consumption will be very, very high, right, for implementation of this project. Instead of this, under Bhumi Rashi portal, it's a website. Under the Bhumi Rashi portal, what the government has done, that is basically Ministry of Roadways. Ministry of Roadways, what it has done is, it has created a portal. Whatever the proposal is there for the project, it will be uploaded in the portal. The proposal will be uploaded in the portal itself. Now, Ministry of Finance will look at it. Simultaneously, Ministry of Urban Development also can see it. Simultaneously, Ministry of Rural Development also can see it. And all of them, right, real time, that is basically simultaneously, they can look at the proposal, they can give their approval for the proposal. And whatever has to be done, for example, if your land has to be acquired, now your land records will be sourced through the portal only, right? How much money it has to be paid to you, that proposal will be prepared on the portal only. So the whole process of creating a project, giving a proposal, getting approvals, etc., everything will be done online now. Everything will be done using this portal. Now, because of this, can I simply say, because we are using digital technology now, the time that will be taken to complete the process will be much lower compared to earlier system? Yes or no? Right? The time taken for completing the whole process will be much lower compared to earlier system. Of course, yes. Right? So it is a e-governance initiative of Ministry of Road Transportation and Highways. It aims to expedite. Expedite means speed up. The whole idea is to speed up the process to acquire land for development of road infrastructure projects. It has made the land acquisition for national highways much more transparent. Under this, the notifications are issued at every stage, and the transactions are processed on real-time basis. Right? So after launching the portal, the processing time for the land acquisition, which used to take earlier months, weeks, etc., now can be done, right, within 2 weeks itself. Within 2 weeks, we can complete the whole process now. This is one more initiative of Government of India, wherein digital technology is being used to make the process much more easier. Done? So this is related to road infrastructure. Anybody has a problem? Can I go forward now? Anybody has any problem, any issue with what I've discussed in the road infrastructure? Again, having said so, please understand, it's not the end of the right complete coverage, because current affairs, a lot of reforms will be discussed by the government. Please keep on updating it. Today officially my last class, but I'll keep on telling you this. Keep on updating. Please keep on updating the information. Keep on updating it. That is only how you will be able to have well prepared information, or you make subject much more easier for you. Otherwise, for example, imagine this, right? Imagine this. You have not updated current affairs, and suddenly UPSC will ask you which has the highest tenure, or which is the highest tenured government bond. If you have not read the newspaper, if you have gone with the last year information, don't you think most of you will take 40 years? Yes or no? If you have not updated the information, you simply read books, you'll read 10 books, right? And you will go believing that you have read everything without realizing RBI has introduced a 50-year bond. Will you not take up 40 years and come back? And you'll be very happy. It's so easy question, right? I was dead right on this particular question. It's so easy without realizing that. Forget about plus 2. Now it will be 2 as usual gone minus 0.67. That is one third negative marking. So that's the reason. And again, I'll hammer only one point with you people. Read current affairs. Update with current affairs. That's very, very important for you. For example, today, how many of you have read Hindu newspaper? In that newspaper, tell me how many of you have come across Bharat Atta. Let me see. How many of you read today's Hindu newspaper and how many of you were able to come across a very small article which I found interesting but insufficient? I'll be very open with you, right? Very nice article, very important article by the way, but very much insufficient, very much insufficient. Why? Right? If you read only that article and expect that UPSC will pick up question on, let's say, Bharat Atta, trust me, most of you will not be able to answer the question. Why? How many of you have heard of a fund by the name of Price Stabilization Fund? Let me see. How many of you have heard of a name of a fund by the name of Price Stabilization Fund? Because that Bharat Atta initiative is associated with Price Stabilization Fund. Trust me on this, right? Onion prices are increasing, right? There also there is a connection to Price Stabilization Fund. In fact, yesterday, right? Yesterday there was one article, I believe, in Mint newspaper. Mint newspaper yesterday. There is an article in Mint newspaper which spoke about Price Stabilization Fund. That is, government, that Ministry of Consumer Affairs doesn't have sufficient amount of money in the Price Stabilization Fund. So suddenly all of you will start reading about Bharat Atta. But many of you will not understand that even pulses are being distributed under the brand name of Bharat only. Certain type of pulses are being distributed under the brand name of Bharat only. That information, I found that kind of information was not provided in Hindu. Right? So that is my only grievance. That is my only grievance. Many of you will simply say, sir, I've been reading Hindu. I should be able to solve all the questions now. No doubt, I'm not questioning that. I'm not questioning that you're not reading. I don't have any doubts. You are reading. But is it sufficient? That is my concern. Is that sufficient for you? The answer is very clearly no. Absolutely no. Right? Very, very clearly no, it's not sufficient. So be very careful. Be very careful. Okay. Let me go to the next article. Ports. Right? Next one is ports. Next infrastructure I want to discuss is ports. Now again, don't ask me, sir, define port. How do you give the definition of a port? No, all of that is not relevant. Please tell me, can you see the picture for a port here? Right, I've given a picture. Why, you'll understand in a minute. I've given a picture here. Okay. This picture is nothing but it's a picture of a port only. Now, in case of India, whenever you talk about ports, we divide the ports into two types. Okay, we divide the ports into two types. One is called as a major port. Second one is minor port. Now, why do we divide them into major and non-major, or let's say minor ports? Reason is simple. Whenever you talk about a major port, the regulation of these major ports will come under the central government. I'll repeat the statement. Whenever you talk about the major ports, the regulation of major ports will come under the central government. And whenever you talk about non-major ports or minor ports, the regulation, right, the provisions regarding or the laws regarding the non-major ports are framed by the state governments. In case of India, we have 12 major ports and more than 200 non-major ports. Right, the major ports are evenly distributed. Right, in the southern coast, you will see 6 on the east coast and 6 on the west coast. and all these remaining 200 are spread across multiple states in India. Right, so this is basically the idea of a major, non-major port in India. Now, second important point. What is the importance of ports? Yes, we have major, we have non-major, but what is the importance of a port? Remember this, more than 90% of the trade by volume, I'll repeat the statement, more than 90% by trade, of trade by volume. In terms of volume, we do that using ports itself. Is a statement okay with all of you? I'll repeat it again. More than 90% of the trade by volume, we do it through the ports itself. In terms of value, it is generally around 50%, but in terms of volume, more than 90%, we will do it using ports itself. Right? That is the another very important point. Now, let me talk about what are the concerns, what are the issues, what are the problems related to port infrastructure in India. First very important problem will be the turnaround time. The turnaround time in case of India is comparatively higher. Do not by heart the number. By the time you write the exam, the number will be comparatively much more different. But remember the concept here, the turnaround time in case of India is higher. Now, many of you ask me, sir, what do you mean by turnaround time? Turnaround time means what is the average time taken? On an average, how many hours are taken between arrival and the departure for the ships or vessels? On an average, how much time a ship will come to the port in India, unload the containers, take out the containers, and then depart for the next port? How much time is taken? That is called as a turnaround time. Now, many of you ask me, sir, why is the turnaround time higher in case of India? Now, that is the reason why I have given the picture here. Now, please look at the picture. Can I say, if you want to talk about turnaround, how many machines are we using? That is very important. How many machines? That is infrastructure, crane infrastructure, or kind of a technology we are using. That's very important. Why? Imagine a ship will come, you will have to take out 2 containers and you will have to load 5 containers. What if we do not have sufficient infrastructure? What if we do not have sufficient cranes available? What if we do not have sufficient technicians who are supposed to operate these cranes and load the containers or unload the containers? So don't you think all of them, if we do not have sufficient technicians working, if we do not have sufficient number of cranes, that is infrastructure, if we do not have a new kind of a technology, all of them will delay, will take more time either to load containers or unload the containers from the ship. And in case of India, all of them are correct. All of them are correct. Right? The kind of technicians we require, the number of technicians we require, or for that matter, the kind of infrastructure we have, the kind of technology we have, compared to other countries, we are lagging behind. Very simple argument. Compared to other countries, we are lagging behind. And because you are lagging behind, if a ship goes to a port, let's say in China, the turnaround time for the ship will be less than 1 day. If they will go to any developed country, the turnaround time is less than 1 day. But in case of India, it is more than 1 day. Now you think of it. Just apply common sense, you'll understand. Imagine you're a ship operator. You own a vessel. Right? I will come to you. I want you to export this product to India where turnaround time is 2 days. Let's say one example. And another example, I want the same product, right? Let's say another product, similar product, to be sent to China, where turnaround time is less than 1 day. Don't you think because the turnaround time is higher in the context of India, you will impose more charges if you will take this product to Indian port? Yes or no? Because the turnaround time is higher, because you're taking more time to unload the containers, then come back like this. Are you not going to impose more charges? Of course, yes. It is similar to any other transportation. Anybody has a problem with this? It is just similar to any other transportation, right? You're taking more time to, right, give this product, or let's say keep this container in India, you will impose more charges. That is the precise reason. That's a precise reason why higher turnaround time is a problem for Indian exporters as well as Indian importers, right? So first problem, that is, right, a problem for India's port sector is the turnaround time is very high. The global average is less than 1 day. In case of India, it is somewhere around 2 days, which means we will have to reduce the turnaround time. Second one is the port infrastructure we have is not sufficient, right? Some of the port infrastructure we will have to restructure, or we will have to rework, right? Introduce a new type of infrastructure within the port itself. For example, it could be roads which are there within the ports, it could be warehouses within the ports, it could be, right, the technology that is used to move the containers, etc. The infrastructure, we need to improve upon that kind of infrastructure as well. Okay, road within the ports are inadequate, machinery and cargo handling equipments, right, are inadequate. We need to have better infrastructure here. Next one is a suboptimal modal mix. Suboptimal modal mix. Now, many of you will ask me, sir, what do you mean by suboptimal modal mix? Let me explain it. First point I want to make to you people is, what do you mean by mode here? Mode means what are the different methods? What are the different methods or types of transportation methods available to you? Can I say, in case of India, you can transport the product using railways, you can transport the product using roadways, you can transport the product using waterways. There are different modes. But most of the transportation in case of India, earlier also I've told you, it happens through road network. Now imagine there is, right, let's say this is southern part of India. Assume, right, I know it doesn't look like a map of India, but again, I don't have so much of time, neither the expertise to draw a correct, right, let's say map like this. Let's imagine this is a southern part of India and there is a port here. And I've manufactured a product in one of the states here. Now, if I want to move this product to the port and then I want to export the product to, let's say, USA or, right, let's say European market, I will use majorly road infrastructure. I will use majorly road infrastructure. Please tell me, don't you think using road infrastructure is inefficient in this example? Rather than road infrastructure, don't you think it makes more sense if I can use railways? Yes or no? If I can use railways, it makes more sense to me. What if rather than railways also, sir, is there any other method which is better than railways? Right, there is also one more method called as waterways. Now, just to give you a glimpse of what is a waterway, please tell me, all of you know that in river, the water will flow, correct? The lake, water will flow. So what if I use the flow of the water using a ship? What if I use the flow of water to transport passengers? What if I use a river that is flowing to transport goods, to transport passengers? So if I use the river flow, if I use a canal water, if I use, right, let's say the lake water, etc., for the mode of transportation, such mode is called as waterways. Such mode is called as waterways. In fact, Government of India, understand this, in fact, Government of India is actually promoting waterways now. Government of India itself is saying, right, use waterways. It is much more efficient. Why? If you use waterways, you don't have to consume so much amount of fuels. I hope you understand the logic behind it. Because half of the work is done by water only. Because water is flowing, half of the work is done by water only. Right? So consumption of fuels will be lesser. Emissions will be lesser. Right? The cost of transportation automatically will be lesser. So that is the reason why government of India is promoting waterways now. Right? Can I give you a current affairs example? How many of you have heard of MV Ganga Vilas? Let me see. How many of you heard of that? Was there in the newspapers, by the way? Current affairs. How many of you have heard of MV Ganga Vilas? Please read about it. UPC can ask you about this. Again, MV Ganga Vilas is not a waterway. It is a luxury cruise. It's a luxury cruise, a tourism project, which has been launched by the government of India. One of the longest in the world. One of the longest in the world. But if you read about it, you will realize that what they're using is waterways only. It's a cruise project, right? What they're using is the flow of water, river waters, right? They're using the river waters for tourism project. So I hope you understand the argument when I say government, in fact, now is promoting the idea of a right waterways, right? So again, come back to this. Because we have developed these manufacturing facilities far away from the port infrastructure, most of the transportation used is road infrastructure. It is suboptimal, it is inefficient. Rather than that, we better use railways, we better use waterways, or what can be the next best solution to this? Right? Don't you think it makes more sense for the government to promote exporting units closer to port infrastructure? I'll repeat the statement. Don't you think it makes more sense for the government to promote the manufacturing units or the industries which are focused on the exporting closer to port infrastructure? That is, for example, what if government will promote coastal special economic zones? Does it make sense to you? What if government will promote coastal special economic zones? SCZs are predominantly for export purposes. So rather than having a manufacturing SCZ in any part of India, why do we not promote SCZs in the coastal region? So that whatever we manufacture, it is very closer to the port, we can easily export it to international market. In fact, that is being done by the government now. It is also being done by the government, right? So suboptimal mix is there. Next one is time consumption for getting government clearance. Customs means getting approvals. Time consumption generally is higher, but now government is introducing lot of reforms to reduce right getting clearances for importing as well as exporting. Okay, issues with linkages to other regions, other parts of India, because the coastal region is predominantly present in the southern part of India, right? What about the other rest of the Indian part, right? So issues with linkages to other parts of India. So these are some of the issues or concerns associated with port infrastructure. Now, what kind of reforms have been implemented? I'll discuss two very important reforms. Listen carefully. Two very important reforms. First one is Sagarmala Initiative. Sagarmala Initiative. And the second reform is Inland Waterways. Now, what is this Sagarmala project, the Sagarmala Initiative? Sagarmala basically means a string, right? A Sagarmala is nothing but a string. String means a thread like this. So, Government of India says across the coastal region in India, across right the coastal region in India, there are various ports, and we have realized that some of these ports right do not have sufficient infrastructure. We also want to develop certain new other types of ports, etc. So under the Sagarmala initiative, we will target port infrastructure. Our objective is to target infrastructure in the port. Right? What is the objective here? Why are we targeting port infrastructure? One, we want to make it easier to export from India and import into India. Easier in the sense, we want to reduce the time taken. We want to reduce the time taken for exporting as well as importing. And if the time taken will come down, automatically cost associated, sorry, automatically the expenditure associated or the cost associated for exports will come down, and cost associated with imports will come down. So don't you think that will improve our export competitiveness? Right, so have a look at this. We want to reduce the cost of transportation. We want to promote export competitiveness. We want to locate the future industries nearby the coastal regions, near the coastal regions, so that we'll be able to easily export using the port infrastructure. And finally, we want to optimize the time or the cost associated with export and imports of containers. EXIM simply means export plus import. All of you okay with this? Export plus import. In short, this is called as EXIM. In short, this is called as EXIM. We want to reduce the time as well as the cost associated with EXIM, that is export and import of containers. The question is how? How can we reduce the cost of transportation? How can we increase the competitiveness? How can we make it easier for container movement? For that, there are four pillars under Sagarmala. There are four pillars under Sagarmala. Pillar 1, port modernization. We will be developing new ports, right? Whatever ports we have, in addition to that, we'll be developing new ports. Second one, we will improve the port connectivity. That is, let's say there are certain ports. These ports have, let's say they do not have railway connectivity, or they have railway connectivity, but this is very old infrastructure, etc. So we will upgrade rail connectivity to the ports, road connectivity to the ports. We'll try to use waterways to have connection to the ports, so that the transportation is easily done to the port and from the port to other parts of India. We will also promote industrialization in the port region. That is, right, for example, government will promote coastal special economic zones. Industrialization, industries will be promoted nearby to the port, so that we can easily export or import raw materials. And the fourth pillar, we will also promote the development of coastal regions by developing the fishing zones, by providing, right, let's say skilling to the people here, by developing tourism projects, right, in the coastal region, etc. So these are the four pillars of Sagarmala initiative. Now within these four pillars, let me focus on this initiative, waterways development, right? How government of India is promoting usage of waterways. And so that is the next reform, national waterways. Very recently, government of India, that is, have a look at this. In 2016, government of India has identified a total of 100 waterways. I'll repeat the statement. In 2016, government of India, through the act, through the implementation of Waterways Act, has identified 111 waterways in India, and government says for the development and maintenance of these waterways, they'll be establishing one authority, and the name of the authority is Inland Waterways Authority of India. Inland Waterways Authority of India, IWAI, Inland Waterways Authority of India. This Inland Waterways Authority of India now will take over and develop and monitor the progress of these inland waterways in India. And once these waterways have been identified by the central government, I repeat, once these waterways, again, when you say waterways, what does it mean? A river water flowing, certain stretch of river water flow, they will declare as a waterway, right? Let's say a canal water, right? Certain stretch or the length of the canal water, they will declare this as a waterway, right? So whenever the central government will identify these waterways, these are called as national waterways. And whenever any national waterway has been notified by the government, it simply means now the Inland Waterways Authority of India will be responsible for operations in these routes. It is this authority which will develop these waterways, ensure that these waterways will be used as a mode of transportation. So how many waterways have been identified as national waterways by Government of India? Triple one. Please remember the number. triple one, 111 waterways have been identified as national waterways. And understand this, the total length of waterways which can be utilized for transportation purposes, right, is 20,200 kilometers. The available length is 20,200 kilometers. Is it sufficient? No, definitely not. We need to improve. We need to increase the length of the waterways. I'll just give you a glimpse, have a look at it. In China, the total length of navigable waters is more than 1 lakh kilometers. I'll repeat the statement. In China, the total length of navigable river waters is more than 1 lakh kilometers. And in case of India, the river plus canal put together is more than 20,000 kilometers, which means China has developed a very huge or very long length of waterways that they're using for transportation purposes. And we are yet to do that. We are improving, but we are yet to do that. So more than 20,000 kilometers of length of navigable waters is available to us, and we want to promote these waterways as a mode of a transportation. Now, these are certain points. Have a look at it. What are the advantages? What are the benefits of using inland waterways? What are the advantages? We'll do the critical evaluation. Some of you are asking, but sir, environmental concern, etc., etc. I'll come to that. Have patience. What are the advantages or benefits? First one, can I say compared to roadways or railways, in waterways, emissions will be comparatively lower. Emissions will be comparatively lower. Second one, in case of the waterways, because we are using the flow of water, obviously consumption of fuel will be lesser. Hence, the cost of transportation in waterways, using waterways, the cost of transportation will also be lesser. That the cost of transportation, generally, remember this, Government of India says, if I use, right, if I use railways and roadways, I will incur certain expenditure. But if I use waterways for transportation, I will be spending around 1/6 of what I spent in roadways. Is the statement okay with all of you? If I transport using roadways, I will spend money. But if I use the waterways as a mode of a transportation, I'll be spending around 1/6 of what money I spent when I transported using roadways. So the cost of transportation using waterways is very, very less in India. Most affordable between all the three. Okay. So comparatively, it is going to consume lesser fuels, emission will be lesser, the cost of transportation will be lesser, and because we are using waterways as a mode of our transportation along the river water, right? Let's say at canals, we are going to invest and let's say set up warehouses. We are going to create jobs for the people, right? People will be required to operate vessels, load containers, unload containers, etc., etc. So we are going to create a lot of job opportunities also. And the best part associated with waterways is that you do not require land for this particular purpose. You do not need a land acquisition for using waterways, because water, let's say rivers, right, the river water now will come under the central government under this act, right? So you do not have to fight with residents in order to acquire land for development of these projects. Land acquisition problem will not be there. So these are some of the benefits. In addition to that, we can also promote tourism. Correct, we can also promote tourism, right, using the river flow, using the water flow, we can also promote tourism, right? So these are some of the advantages associated with waterways. But having said so, are there any problems, are there any concerns related to waterways? Point number one, right, all the rivers in India, I'm pretty sure you would have come across this in geography. But again, if geography is not over, don't worry, when the session will happen, you'll understand this. All the rivers in India do not have water throughout the year. Same amount of water flow is not there throughout the year. That is, when you read in geography, you'll come across this. They will say rivers in northern India are perennial. Correct? At least for those for whom geography is over. Rivers in northern India, right? These are perennial. Perennial means Himalayan rivers. Throughout the year, you will have a good amount of water flow. Whereas come down to south, right? Go to southern part of India, we'll say these are non-perennial rivers. Non-perennial, which means throughout the year, they will not have the same amount of water flow. So please tell me, if you want to use a river flow, if you are using river for a mode of transportation, don't you think having good amount of water flow is important? Of course it is important, right? So in case of southern India, right, certain seasons you will not find good amount of water flow, but in northern India you'll find throughout the year good amount of water flow. So that becomes a problem. Using waterways, that becomes a problem. That is the first problem. Second problem, tell me, when the river will flow, can I say it will carry material along with itself? Correct? Right? When the river will flow, it will carry material, right? That is, it will carry certain small stones, it will carry pebble, it will carry sand, it will carry silt. Now what if a river is flowing like this? Let's say this is a river channel. Okay, this is a river channel. The river will keep on flowing. It will carry certain soil particles from other part of the river and will start depositing here. It will start depositing here. Please tell me, in this case, don't you think once this deposition happens, right, don't you think how much of the width is available, how much of the channel is available for transportation? That will become a problem or not? Correct? That will become problem, right? What if a vessel will go and it will get stuck up here? Right? What if a vessel will go, the width of the channel is lesser, and the vessel, rather than going vertically, right, rather than going like this, it will turn like this, it will get stuck up in this region. Has it happened? Has anybody come across these kind of articles in the newspaper? Any international event related to what I'm discussing? Last year, was there, did you come across one such event at Suez Canal? Correct? Right? Evergreen vessel. Right? Don't you think that particular vessel, rather than going like this, because of the wind, got turned like this? Right? Because instead of going like this, it turned and became like this. And because the channel was narrower, the vessel got stuck up. What is a guarantee that same thing will not happen in rivers in India? In fact, such incidents have happened where many of the vessels, because of the wind flow, have been dragged to the shores. Right, they have been, right, pushed to the shores, so where they have got stuck up, because at the shores the depth of the channel is very lesser. So I hope you understand the point I'm trying to make here. The deposition will happen, and this deposition is called as silting process. Right, this is nothing but silting. And because silting will happen, right, you cannot allow the silting to continue, otherwise the depth of the channel will come down, or the right length of the channel will become narrower. You cannot allow this to continue. So what you'll have to do now? Spend money, bring in right machineries, and start removing right all of this silting. That is called as a dredging process. Okay, that is called as a dredging process. But for all of it, you will incur expenditure. For all of this, you will incur expenditure, right? So, right, because of silting, expenditure is higher in waterways. Second one is all the rivers in India will not have water throughout the year. Seasonally, the water will be available. Third one, the amount of money that you will have to invest to maintain these waterways, to develop warehousing, right? All of this has to be done new investment now. And finally, if you start using the rivers, right, for movement of goods, vessels will start right using these river flows, etc. There will definitely be an impact on the environment. There will definitely be an impact on the environment, right? So there is also concern of what damage we are going to cause to the ecology and environment because of this, right? So these are some of the concerns which are associated with the concept of inland waterways. Okay, next, the last part of infrastructure, that is airports. Right? Anybody in the classroom who says right? So please define airport, right? So again, understand this. Airports in India, there are large number of airports. Lot of airports are there. But whenever you're talking about airports, some of the airports are basically, right, are not fully developed airports. These are not civilian airports. These are used by the defense sector. And there are certain airports, there are certain stretches of airways which are used only by the defense sector. And remaining are, right, let's say smaller civilian airports or larger civilian airports. For example, we have airport in Kolkata, we have airport in Delhi, we have an airport in Jaipur, we have airport in Shirdi, we have airport right in let's say Bangalore, we have an airport in Chennai, we have an airport in Hyderabad, etc. Right. So argument is simple. There are multiple types of airports in India. These airports generally, until very recently, were developed by the central government. Right, Government of India has an authority, Airport Authority of India. So until very recently, right, Government of India used to develop these airports. But in recent times, Government of India is promoting private sector investment in the airports. For example, existing airports. Let me know whether this makes sense or not. I'll suddenly use a statement. Right, there are greenfield airports also, there are brownfield airports also. In case of brownfield airports, right, private sector company has been allowed to operate airports. In greenfield airports, private sector companies, be it domestic or a foreign, they have been allowed to develop and maintain these airports. Right, so many of these airports are being overseen, right, in terms of management, etc., operations, etc. These are being overseen by the private sector companies. Now, what is a concern? What is a concern related to the overall civil aviation market? What is the concern? What are the issues related to overall civil aviation market in India? Now, overall issues are, let's go point by point. First one, the cost of travel in India is very, very high. It is not cheaper, it is costlier. If you want to purchase a ticket, the ticket prices are not affordable for most of the population in India. As per Government of India's survey documents, hardly around 2 to 3% of India's population has access to civil aviation market. I'll repeat the statement. Hardly around 2 to 3% of the population has access, right, to civil aviation market. The reason being, for the large number of population, there are no airports in their cities. The large number of population, right, there are no airports in their cities. And in certain cities, there are airports, right? There are airports, but in case of these cities, there is no airport carrier. No company is providing services, right, of civil aviation in these cities. And in certain cities where airport carriers are there, where airports are also there, etc., the ticket prices are very costly. The ticket prices are very, very costly, right, and which makes it unaffordable for many of these people, right, to use the civil aviation market for traveling purposes or transportation purposes. Done. So these are some of the problems related to affordability factor. Now, even if you can afford the ticket price, even if you have money and you want to travel using, let's say, an airport, right, or let's say a company such as Indigo, SpiceJet, etc., one concern why the ticket prices are so high, one concern is that we are dependent on import of aviation turbine fuel. Right, we are dependent on aviation turbine fuel import. Right, ATF is basically one of the components of crude oil. All of you heard of crude oil? Right, so we import crude oil, and when you refine crude oil, when you separate the crude oil, one of the output that you get is aviation turbine fuel. So can I simply say, because we are heavily dependent on the import of crude oil, the prices of ATF are very volatile in India? Please do let me know. Prices of ATF are very volatile in India. Does it make sense or not? right? Why? Because if the crude oil prices will keep on fluctuating, automatically the ATF prices will also fluctuate. And one more problem associated with the ATF is that right now there is no GST on the ATF. I'll repeat. Right now there is no GST on the ATF, which means on this fuel, central government will have its own tax rate. State government will also have its own tax rate without any ITC, without any input tax credit. There is a imposition of taxes separately by the center as well as the state. So because of the import dependence plus because of these taxes, can I simply say the prices of ATF will be very high. And because the price of ATF is very high, automatically ticket prices will also be very high. Third concern is the kind of infrastructure that is developed in the airports. Many of these airports keep on developing lot of unnecessary infrastructure where lot of expenditure is incurred. I'll repeat the statement here. Right, as per government of India, there is unnecessary very high-end infrastructure that is developed which is not required for the large number of people who are traveling. And because this kind of infrastructure is developed by spending money, the airports will also add certain charges to ticket prices. And because those ticket prices are higher, right, sorry, because those charges are there, ticket prices automatically will be higher. And one more concern, fourth concern by the way, in case of India, in large number of cities where airports are present, there is generally one airport which is present. One airport which is present. Now, why this is a problem? Why this is a problem? If you look at a city such as New York, if you look at a city such as London, which have multiple airports, generally what is seen is, imagine there is one airport with very high amount of infrastructure, very high infrastructure. There is one more airport with basic requirements, basic required infrastructure. Can I simply say, people, if they do not mind paying higher amount of money for luxurious travel, they will opt for the first airport. And middle class, right, the aam aadmi such as you and me, who are very price conscious, very price conscious, we would prefer to travel using services of the second airport. Does it make sense to you? Right, so I hope you understand this. Right, there are a lot of these lot of these cities with one airport. And in case of this one airport, right, for example, many of you are asking, sir, right, can you give me an example? What do you mean by unnecessary infrastructure? My dear, if you have gone to many of these airports, lot of paintings will be displayed. Lot of paintings. Right, a lift is there. Lift has a very high-end technology, completely transparent, very high-end, very costly lift. Go, right, check it. If you don't trust me, or if you say, sir, I don't have access to airport, just check, right, just check the photos of Delhi airport, or for that matter Bangalore airport. Right, you'll be surprised to see the kind of infrastructure, right, that is available in these airports. Free newspapers, right, the amount of expenditure, they will not spare any amount of expenditure to create this infrastructure, but they will ensure that the customers will pay for that infrastructure whether you like it or don't like it. For example, you might be going to a airport, hardly 15 minutes is there, and they will start boarding. They'll ask you to board the plane. What is the need for, let's say, luxurious seating there? Correct. What is the need for luxurious seating? I don't need it. I'm hardly sitting for 10 minutes. Why should I pay so much amount of money? But what is the other option? Right? What is the other option available to you? There is no other airport. Only one airport is there. So whether you like it, don't like it, you'll have to pay money. Whether you use it, don't use it. Right, so that is basically the argument here. Right, so many of these issues are ensuring that the cost of the tickets is very high. And because the cost of the tickets is very high, lot of people will not be able to afford the ticket prices in India. Okay, lot of the people in India are unable to afford the ticket prices. Airports generally act as monopolies. Air travel is costly in India. ATF prices are very high. Right, connectivity issues in smaller cities. In small cities, airports are there, but right number of people who want to use it is very less. So no company will provide services. Right, even if people want to travel, no company is providing services. Right, so where a lot of connectivity issues in smaller cities in India. Okay, done. Apart from this, one more issue: maintenance, repairs, and overhaul. Maintenance and repairs and overhaul. Now, let me ask a very simple question. Have you people come across Air India purchasing right aeroplanes from foreign companies? Indigo ordering for planes from foreign companies. Now, please tell me, if Air India will purchase, let's say, right, a Rolls-Royce engine. In fact, Rolls-Royce, Boeing, lot of companies are there. If let's say Air India will purchase, right, a Rolls-Royce engine, do you think Rolls-Royce will have, right, repairs provided in India? Do you think Rolls-Royce will set up a shop in India to provide repairs and maintenance to you? No, they are present in a foreign country. So now imagine you want to have a repairs. You want to have maintenance, etc. for your aeroplane. So what you'll have to do when you fly to overseas destinations, when you fly to overseas, that is foreign destinations, at a particular airport, these kind of maintenance, repairs, etc. is provided. You will have to take your aeroplane there, get the repairs done, pay them. Now, can I say because of this, dollars are going out of India? Correct or not? Because of this, dollars are going out of India. Rather than this, why not promote this kind of industry within India? Why not promote this kind of maintenance, repairs, etc. within India itself? That is what government of India is trying to do now. Government is saying that we want these types of companies to open up maintenance, right, let's say workshops in India. We want them to provide repairs within India. That is the objective. With this, I hope you understand, with if this is done, automatically what will happen, the cost for the repairs, rather than taking the aeroplane all the way there, the cost of repairs, because it is done in India, the cost for maintenance and repairs will automatically come down. If these companies will start providing these types of services in India, they will create employment in India, right? So these are some of the objectives. And because the maintenance is done within India, repairs is done within India, there is no outflow of currencies from India. The currencies will remain within India, right? So that is basically the concept of MRO. And that is basically the objective of, right, the MRO promotion being done by government of India. Done. Now, in the context of civil aviation market, right? In the context of civil aviation market, what kind of reforms have been implemented by the government? What kind of measures have been implemented by the government? First one, government is allowing FDI. Government is allowing FDI in airport development as well as operations. Brownfield investments are also allowed. I repeat, brownfield investments are also allowed, and greenfield investments are also allowed. Is it okay? The brownfield investments as well as greenfield investments are also allowed within the airport market. Within the airport market. Okay. Now, apart from this, government is also promoting PPP in airports. Many of the airports which are already operating, government of India is putting these airports on the block, right, for 30 years, 20 years, etc. Public-private partnership is also done in case of PPP, that is airports. And the third one, which is very often cited in the newspaper, UDAN scheme, regional connectivity scheme, or UDAN scheme. Now, what is this UDAN scheme or regional connectivity scheme? Let's start. Under the regional connectivity scheme or UDAN scheme, the government of India will provide viability gap funding. Please tell me, all of you okay with the term viability gap funding? I'll repeat it. Government of India says there are smaller cities in India. There are smaller cities. Because these cities are smaller, right? The airports are also even smaller, but there are certain people, certain population is there which can afford the ticket prices. If the prices are lowered, they would start using, right, aeroplane mode as a transportation. So under the UDAN scheme or regional connectivity scheme, which was announced by the government as a part of Civil Aviation Policy 2016, government will provide viability gap funding for these companies, private sector companies, which will have to provide traveling services, that is flying services, they will have to provide to smaller cities in India. Generally, cities in India, understand this, these are classified based on population. Okay, as per census, cities are classified based on population, and that is, if the city has more than 10 lakh population, it is classified one way. If it is more than 1 lakh up to 10 lakh, it is classified in another way. More than 50,000 up to 1 lakh, so there is a classification, right? These are called as a tier 1 cities, tier 2 cities, etc, etc. So in tier 1 cities, which are bigger cities, we can see the airports, right, are present, the companies are providing services, etc. But what about those cities which have a population of more than 50,000, more than 10,000, sorry, more than 20,000, etc. In those cities, smaller cities, right, the flying services are not provided. So government of India wanted to promote that the civil aviation market, ensure that the ticket prices would be lower. And that is the precise reason. And the government basically will provide viability gap funding. They will provide funding to you for 3 years, but the condition is that half of the seats, right, basically the civil aviation companies will have to sell at a price of 2,500 rupees. Half of the seats, they will have to sell it at a 2,500 rupees. Now, what if right, there is no aeroplane but helicopter is there? Helicopter services. Will it be covered under UDAN scheme? Of course, yes. Even helicopters are covered under the UDAN scheme, but there the limitation, the pricing of the ticket should be 5,000 rupees per hour of flight. Half of the seats, 5,000 rupees per hour of flight. So in case of right, airports is this much. In case of helicopters, it is 5,000 rupees. Now, under the UDAN scheme, Government of India has a target of connecting 100 airports. 100 airports, right? That is basically achieving connectivity to 100 airports by 2024, which looks very doubtful even today, right? Doubtful. Why? I'll tell you. Before the pandemic itself, UDAN scheme was launched. During the pandemic, it was seen that lot of companies, they are providing the services, no doubt. They are getting VGF, viability gap funding from the government. They are providing services, but they had an issue that during pandemic, the civil aviation services were cancelled. All of you know this. During pandemic, government of India said no traveling, right? Nobody will be allowed to travel. So aeroplanes, right? You cannot fly. Buses, you cannot fly, right? So basically, traveling was right, not allowed by the government. So on one side, smaller companies, regional companies, they have hired people, they have basically right taken aeroplanes on lease, purchased aeroplanes, they want to provide services, but government of India has not allowed traveling by air. In that case, the cost of operations will continue to be incurred by them, but no revenue is there. So what has happened? Because of the pandemic, even after the pandemic, the market has not recovered. Even after pandemic, market has not recovered. Very recently it has started recovering. So because of the pandemic or post-pandemic experience, many of these routes which were covered under the UDAN scheme, the private sector companies stopped operating. They completely stopped operating. They said we cannot provide the services because the number of passengers are very less. The cost of operations for us is very high. We are already in losses. If I keep providing these services, I'll further incur losses. So have a look at this. More than 400 routes have been launched under UDAN scheme, but many of these routes have been discontinued by the private sector companies because these are not viable for them. They basically found that these are not financially viable. They are incurring losses. The pandemic has affected the demand, and cost of operations in these routes has increased because of higher ATF, right, lower traffic, etc. So these are certain important points regarding Ude Desh Ka Aam Nagrik or regional connectivity scheme. So this is the end of the discussion regarding airports, all the types of infrastructure in India. Even though I've completed, I would strongly recommend that you people please keep on reading and updating the infrastructure that you come across in the newspaper. Please read, please update. Okay. Now, let me take up questions. And we'll take a break. Don't worry. Let me take up questions. Now, please tell me, did we discuss all these particular terms in the classroom? 50-year bonds, right? A supply shock, inflation, right? Sugar dispute at WTO, right? ISA will provide viability gap funding, open-ended procurement. Do you remember this? Open-ended procurement under right food security, right? First, rice silo infrastructure. Let me know if I've not used these terms in the classroom. Silos for warehousing of agriculture commodities. India is seeking formal talks to resolve the issue of a dispute resolution body, right? A digital crop survey. This is new current affairs, purely current affairs. Please read this, right? ENAM. Did we discuss ENAM, right? In agriculture sector, this article is regarding ENAM, right? ENAM 2.0, right? The concept of a guaranteed MSP, right? One of the state government, Andhra Pradesh, was discussing guaranteed MSP. They basically dropped the idea. Why? We have discussed the same thing are being discussed. Research and development in India, RD&D, research and development issues in India. Article is regarding that. Credit gaps persist in the MSME sector, agriculture sector, despite banks meeting PSL targets. Did we discuss there is a problem of access to credit in the agriculture sector? Did we discuss the problem of access to institutional credit in the MSME sector? Right, despite being covered under PSL, priority sector lending, lot of accessibility problem is there in both MSME as well as agriculture. Read that article. Right, the pitfalls of guaranteed MSP. Right, so these are certain important articles. My recommendation is read all of them. Please read all of them. All of them are very important. Now let's start solving. Let's start solving. Okay. Okay. 35% have answered correctly. I believe one point would have been a problem for some of you. It is very clear fourth one is wrong. All of you okay with this? It is very clear fourth one is wrong. Portfolio investment is wrong. And why? Fourth is not part of foreign direct investment. Right? It is the FPI. Subsidiaries of companies in India. What do you mean by subsidiaries of companies in India? Let's say Apple company, a US company, will open Apple company, one more company in India. Correct? Right? Apple company, a foreign company, will open one more company in India. Can I call this as a subsidiary of Apple company? Subsidiary means owned, right? It's a basically a company which is owned by somebody else. It is called as a subsidiary. So a subsidiary is of companies in India, right? A Apple company can own a subsidiary company in India, allowed. Accenture can open a subsidiary company in India, allowed. Air Asia can open a subsidiary company in India, that is also allowed. So whenever a subsidiary companies are owned by foreign companies, they have invested money, automatically it becomes part of FDI. Second one, majority foreign equity holding in Indian companies. And a foreign company will invest in an Indian company, have ownership of 51%. Can I call this as FDI? Majority means at least 51%. Can I call this as FDI? Answer is yes. Correct or not? If you own 51% in an Indian company, the foreign company owns 51%, it is FDI only. Third one, companies exclusively financed by foreign companies. I'm pretty sure a lot of you would have faced issue in the third point. Companies exclusively financed by foreign companies. What do you mean by this? A foreign bank, let's say, will open only one branch in India. Let's say, okay, a foreign bank will open only one branch in India. And whatever operational expenses are there for labor, for rent, for purchasing computers, etc., will be paid by the foreign company itself. That is foreign bank will be paid by foreign bank itself. Can I call this as FD or not? Let me know. Right? Or a foreign company will open only one office, just one office in India, and whatever expenses are associated with this office in India, for example, labor cost, rental cost, right, etc., all of that will be paid by the foreign company itself. Is it FDI? Answer is yes. If you have a confusion, answer is yes. If a company in India is there, but the financing of this company is received by a foreign company, whatever is the expenditure done by this company in India, you will receive the money from a foreign company. This money is called as FDI, right? That is also FDI only. So fourth one is wrong. First, second, third are correct. Right option will be option D here. Right option is option D, 1, 2 and 3 only. Next one. Okay, why? What is the issue? Let's start. Let me see whether I have marked it wrong or you people have marked it wrong. Both foreign direct investment and foreign institutional investors are related to investment in a country. Which one of the following statements best represents an important difference between the two? Okay, let me start the poll again. Because I've made a mistake. My mistake. Okay, let me start the poll again. Quickly, in 10 seconds, you pick up which is the right answer. Arey, what is happening? Okay. Just a second. Just a second. Let's solve it. Let's solve it. Some of you are giving conflicting answers. Let's solve it. Both FDI and FII are related to investment in a country. Which one of the following statements best represent important difference between the two? Difference between the two. Let's start. FII helps bringing better management skills and technology, while FDI only brings in capital. Correct? Please do let me know. FII will bring better management into India and FDI will bring capital into India. No, exactly opposite. All of you agree? Exactly opposite. It's false. Exactly opposite. Many of you are saying, sir, A is correct. You have marked it wrong. Right? A is wrong. FII will help in increasing capital availability in general, while FDI only targets specific sectors. FDI targets only specific sectors, which is correct. right? I marked wrong, which is correct? B is correct. FII will invest in the stock market. Money increases in the stock market or bond market. Whereas FDI will go to, right, civil aviation market, will go to airports, will go into defense sector. Did people read about it? Will go to defense sector, etc. Right? So B is correct. Let's eliminate the remaining two. FDI flows only into the secondary market while FII targets primary market. Not necessarily. Not necessarily. FDI flows only into the secondary market. Correct? No. What if you're going to invest, let's say, in unlisted stock? What if you're going to invest in unlisted company? Right? There is no primary, there is no secondary there. So C is also wrong. FI is considered to be more stable than FDI. Exactly opposite. Exactly opposite. In fact, if you remember correctly, I believe day for yesterday, I'm sorry, the last class, right? Not yesterday's class, the previous class, I've written FPI. I said FPI is also referred to as fly by night money. Correct? Fly by night money. FPI is also referred to as a fly by night money. It is also referred to as a hot money. Why? Reason being, FPI is very volatile. It can come into India, it can go out of India. But FDI, if it comes into India, the objective is to stay for a very longer duration. Objective is to stay for a very longer duration. Exactly opposite. So whoever has marked B, congratulations, you are right. I am wrong. By mistake, I marked D. Right. So those who have marked B, right, you are right. Okay. Let's go to the next question now. Okay, 47% have answered correctly. Okay, let's start. Consider the following: foreign currency convertible bonds, or whatever these are. Which of the above can be included in FDI? What about the third one? Global deposit receipt. Let me know. What about the third one? Global deposit receipt. FDI? Yes. Right? We have discussed this. ADR, GDR. Are they FDI? Yes, these are FDI only. Foreign institutional investment with certain conditions. This is very important. Foreign institutional investment with certain conditions. That is, if a foreign institution will invest and purchase 10% or more than 10%, can I call this as FDI? Think of it. A foreign institution this year, imagine they will purchase 6%. But in the next 1 year, they will increase it to at least 10% with conditions. That's a reason, with certain conditions. So if they invest and if they promise that they will increase it to 10% or more than 10%, can I count it as FDI? Yes, I can count it as FDI also. First one, foreign currency convertible bonds. Please tell me, point number one, what do you mean by convertible bonds? Did we discuss the idea of a convertible bond earlier? Right, where I'll tell you, financial market. When we discussed the financial market, did we discuss convertible bond? And I said, what is a convertible bond? This will be issued as a bond after certain years, after certain time period, the bond will be converted into equity. Correct? The bond will be converted into equity, that is shares. Now imagine I will issue a bond in the foreign market today, and after 2 years, you have purchased it, you can convert that into equity. Does it not mean you are having investment in the form of ownership in the company now? Let me know. Does it not mean You are having an investment in the company, but it is in the form of ownership now, not in the form of liability, not in the form of debt. Your investment is in equity now. You have the ownership in a company. So because you have ownership in the company, can I call this as FDI? Correct? Can I call this as foreign direct investment? Answer is yes, by the way. If you have a doubt, RBI says yes. Right? These convertible bonds, because they can be converted into equity, because they are allowed to be converted into equity, will be counted as a part of FDI. Okay, so first one is also correct. So one is correct, two is correct, three correct. Let's go to the fourth point. Non-resident external deposit. What is this non-resident external deposit? Imagine you'll go to USA, okay, and you will settle in USA, right? You'll settle in USA. Now you will open a bank account in India. It's allowed, by the way. You'll open a bank account in India and you will keep deposits in this bank account. Please tell me, is it FDI? I'll repeat the process again. You will shift to USA and right, you'll become a resident of USA now. And you will open a bank account in India and you will transfer money into this particular bank account which you opened in India. Non-resident external deposit. Is it FDI? No, it is simply a bank account. It's a bank account. It's an investment in the bank deposit. That's it. It is not an investment in equity. You're not purchasing ownership of a company, right? You're not purchasing equity in a company. So fourth one is wrong. So 1, 2, and 3 are correct. Right option for the question will be option A, 1, 2, and 3. Okay. Descriptive questions now. Justify the need for FDI for the development of Indian economy. Why is there a gap between MOU? MOU means Memorandum of Understanding. Memorandum of Understanding. Agreements. Memorandum of Understanding is nothing but agreement. Why is there a gap between Memorandum of Understanding signed and actual FDI? That is, generally the companies, foreign companies, will sign an agreement with the state government, that is called as MOU, and after that they will invest in the state. So why is there a gap between MOU and the actual FDI? And suggest certain remedial steps to be taken to increase FDI in India. How do you approach these kind of questions? Three parts to the question are answered. Start with introduction, right? Define what is FDI in 1 or 2 statements, nothing more than that. Then tell what is the importance of FDI. It is having a multiplier effect. It will create employment in India. It will increase production, as a result of which exports will start increasing, import dependence will come down, right? It will lead to lot of investments in the domestic market, etc., etc. These are some of the reasons why FDI is so important for a developing country such as India. But having said so, there are certain reasons, certain problems as to why there is a huge gap between the agreements signed and the actual investments made in India. What are the reasons? Land acquisition is very difficult in India. Land acquisition is very difficult. For that reason, also many of these companies do not invest in India. Skilled labor availability is very less in India. And government policies such as having higher tariffs or changing right the tariff policy regarding certain import of raw materials, right? Complementary infrastructure such as a port infrastructure, railways infrastructure, road infrastructure, right, etc., etc. So these are some of the reasons. These are some of the reasons why agreements are signed but investments are not made. The companies will not invest in the state. So what is the way forward? How can you increase the amount of investment? Certain sectors FDI is not allowed. If government wants to attract more FDI, open up the sector. They can do it through government route only, but open up the sector. For example, let me know, with government allowing FDI in the defense sector, are you not seeing more foreign companies investing in India now? And if you have read the newspaper, right, is there the first FDI allowed, right? Think of it. Was there a first FDI allowed in India very, very recently in the defense sector? It was there in the newspapers, by the way. Whatever I'm talking was there in the newspaper. Please check it. So there are certain sectors where FDI is not allowed. Open it up. You can have through government route only. Open it up, right? Allow FDI to come. Have a single window clearance system. Best example, National Single Window System, NSWS, right? Promote various measures to have skilled labor available in the market. Right? So these are some of the recommendations that you can provide to improve and attract more and more foreign direct investment in the Indian economy. Okay. Now there is one more descriptive question here. There is a clear acknowledgement that special economic zones are tool for industrial development, manufacturing, and exports. Recognizing this potential, the whole instrumentality of SEZs require augmentation. Augmentation means restructuring. Right? We need to have a relook, change the policy, make it much more consolidated. Discuss the issues plaguing the SEZs with respect to taxation, governing laws, and administration. Right? What is the model answer? Start with introduction, definition of SEZ, definition of special economic zone. Start with the definition. Then come to the main body. Discuss, right, why SEZs are important. For example, SEZs will lead to a lot of investments in India. It will lead to creation of employment in India. It will increase export competitiveness. It will bring precious dollars, forex reserves into India, etc. Having said so, what are the problems related to SEZ model in India? Right, the tax benefits, the tax exemption that the government of India was providing, now government is withdrawing. The subsidies that the government used to provide under MEIS, SCIS, it was violating WTO norms, hence government of India has suspended them. It is becoming difficult to acquire land. Land has been acquired, but the investment is not flowing. Infrastructure is ready, but the pandemic has affected a movement of many companies into SEZs, etc., etc. So you already know what are the issues concerning the SEZ model and what is the recommendation, what is the way forward. Write the recommendations of Baba Kalyani Committee. We have discussed that yesterday only, I believe. Write the recommendations of Baba Kalyani Committee, right? 3 to 4 or 4 to 5. That will ensure that you are easily hitting 250 words and it will take care of the word limit also. Okay, done. Right, so these are the questions which have appeared in the last couple of years regarding the investment models. Right, let me take a break. If you have any questions, please do let me know. We'll take a break. After the break, we'll start with a new chapter. Sir, what are soft bank? My dear, I have not come across the term soft bank. I've come across the term soft loan. Soft loans generally are those types of loans where the repayment conditions are very easy. The rate of interest, repayment conditions means what? The rate of interest is very low, and the repayment period, right, for what time period the loan has been given, the time period is also very high. These are generally referred to as soft loans. According to Google, India now has 13 major ports instead of 12. As far as I know, it is 12. 13th has been proposed. I believe 13th was Vadhavan or something of that sort. I don't think it is operational. As far as I know, there are 12. If 13th becomes operational, if you come across any newspaper article, update it. No problem, update it. Okay. Greenfield and brownfield. Greenfield means the project will be started from scratch, from the beginning. Brownfield means the infrastructure is already there. The infrastructure is already there. Now, infrastructure will be given to somebody else for operation purposes. That is greenfield and brownfield. Sir, articles after the classes. My dear, you will have to start reading now. Right? Please start reading. Okay, any other question? Sir, why all PYQs are related to FDI? FDI is very important. FDI is very important. That is a precise reason. You can check the paper. FDI is very much important. Although I've given PPP. In fact, I believe a couple of years ago, there was a question on PPP, public-private partnership in mains. right? But prelims generally you get questions on FDI, FPI. Generally you get questions on FDI and FPI. Okay. Leaderboard, my dear, I'll show you the leaderboard, but I'll be very blunt with you, very frank with you. I made one mistake, right? So whatever leaderboard rankings you will get, please take it with a pinch of salt, right? Scold me, but take it with a pinch of salt. Okay, done. So let me stop the discussion now. Let's take a break. After the break, we can start with the next chapter. Okay, take a break now. We will restart the discussion at 7:25. We'll restart the discussion at 7:25. Okay, take a break. Okay, good evening everyone. Welcome back. Am I audible? Please do let me know. Am I audible? Can we start the discussion now? Okay, done. Let's start. So the next chapter that I want to discuss will be the chapter of planning, concept of planning. Very old concept, outdated concept, but anyways, we'll look at the evolution, then come to the current affairs, that is Niti Aayog. Niti Aayog is important now. So in concept of planning, before I start the discussion, these are the topics that I'll cover. Okay, we'll discuss what do you mean by planning, the 5-year planning in India, the Planning Commission, National Development Council, right? The 5-year plans and what is the evaluation, right? How do you evaluate all these 12 5-year plans, etc.? We'll have a discussion regarding that. And after that, we'll take up Niti Aayog, because right now, please understand, we do not have Planning Commission. Planning Commission was set up earlier after independence, but 2014 and 2015, Government of India announced that they will be abolishing Planning Commission. So we do not have Planning Commission. If you ask me who is the chairman, etc., there is no one, because there is no Planning Commission. And when Government of India decided to abolish Planning Commission, they also announced that they will have a new authority, new institution, and the name of this institution is Niti Aayog. And today Niti Aayog is the authority which is operating in India. But please understand, Niti Aayog does not prepare 5-year plans. Right? Today we do not have a concept of 5-year plans in India. It was there earlier. 12 5-year plans have been implemented. In fact, the 12th one was implemented half, not completely implemented also. But after the 12th 5-year plan, we have not implemented any 5-year plans after that. We have discontinued the concept of 5-year plans. If you ask me, sir, why did we discontinue? What was the issue? Government of India felt that there is no utility of 5-year plans now in India. There is no use of 5-year plans. That is the precise reason we have decided to abolish Planning Commission and discontinue the 5-year plans. So these are the points I'll be discussing. Now, before I start discussion, trust me when I say this, every 5-year plan, there will be a document of at least 1,000 pages. Every 5-year plan. Now, how many 5-year plans are there? 12 5-year plans. So if anybody wants to ask me, sir, should we read all the 12 5-year plans? Look at this data. There are 12 5-year plans, and each of the 5-year plan has at least 1,000 pages document, which means you are asking me, sir, one chapter should I read, right? Let's say 10,000 pages. For one chapter, should I read 10,000 pages? You tell me, does it make sense to you? Right? Does it make any sense? And moreover, I am saying Planning Commission has been abolished. There is no 5-year plans now. So do not waste your time in reading 5 pages for first 5-year plan, another 5 pages for 12th 5-year plan, another 6 pages for second 5-year plan. I can do that. I can take, let's say, 1 month only planning. But is it useful for UPSC examination ultimately? Because you are not doing a PhD, you want to prepare for UPSC. So my recommendation, in all the 12 5-year plans, I will try to give you 3 or 4 important points. And that itself, my dear, trust me, will make it around 40 plus points. So if you can remember those 40 plus points for all the 12 5-year plans, sequentially, more than sufficient for UPSC. More than sufficient. Okay. Now, what do you mean by planning? What do you mean by economic planning? The economic planning simply means the government or the central authority. In the context of India, it was union government. So the government or the central authority will set up certain targets. For example, government of India would set up target for GDP. Government would set up target for agriculture sector, industrial sector, etc. So for these sectors, government would set up a target, and to achieve the target, the resources would be allocated in a duration of 5 years. This process, I repeat, this process of setting target and allocating resources to achieve target. This process is called as economic planning. Everybody is okay with this? Can I go forward? Please do let me know. I'll repeat it again. If you ask me what is planning, planning basically means it's a process wherein the government will set up certain targets. Targets for what? GDP, targets for industrial growth rate, targets right in agriculture sector, etc. And to achieve these targets, government would allocate resources. This process is called as economic planning. And whenever you talk about planning, generally there are two types. You can come across a plan which is called as imperative planning, which is referred to as imperative planning, or else it is also referred to as central command planning. Central command planning, or else you will come across a type of planning which is called as indicative planning. So one is called as a imperative planning, second one is called as indicative planning. What is the basic difference between imperative and indicative? In imperative, please remember, the 5-year plan, or let's say a plan, is prepared by the government and it is implemented by the government through its entities or through its agencies. Is it okay? I'll repeat it again. What do you mean by imperative planning or central command planning? This type of planning, or under this type of planning, the government will formulate a plan, and in the process of implementing the plan, the government will use its own authorities, its own entities in the process of implementation of the plan. Right? Everything is done by government itself. In essence, everything is done by the government itself. On the other side, indicative planning. Right? On the other extreme, there is indicative planning. In case of indicative planning, what happens? The government will formulate a plan. The government will formulate a plan. But in the process of implementation of the plan, the government will be involved along with the private sector. Is it okay? The government will be involved along with the private sector. So can I say, in essence, the imperative planning is followed by countries where they will follow, right, socialism. Yes or no? Or communist economies, right? The government will control everything. Government will basically invest in all the companies. Government will produce everything. Communist economies. Whereas indicative planning, can I say Indian economy, mixed economy? Countries which will follow mixed economy, they will follow indicative planning. To be very precise, in the context of India, please remember this. Post the 8th 5-year plan, you'll understand why. Post the 8th 5-year plan, Government of India started purely following indicative model of planning. Because let me show it to you. Why 8th 5-year plan? Let me show it to you. Please have a look at 8th 5-year plan. What is the time period for 8th 5-year plan? Again, this is basically application of what you have learned. What is the importance? What is the time period of 8th 5-year plan? 92 to 97. Don't you think post 1991, I repeat, post 1991, government started implementing LPG? And what is the outcome of LPG reforms? And don't you think because of LPG reforms, more and more participation of private sector was allowed in the Indian economy? Correct? We have discussed all of it. More and more participation of private sector in the Indian economy. That is a precise reason, right? They will say from 8th to 5-year plan, Government of India started utilizing the indicative planning. Okay, right? So one is indicative, second one is imperative planning. Now, this is basically the definition of right, the economic plan. In the context of India, the Government of India at that point of time decided that once every 5 years, we will create a plan. And because the plan was proposed for every 5 years, in case of India, we would call them as 5-year plans. The economic plans which were prepared by Government of India for 5 years, because it was prepared for 5 years, we call these as 5-year plans in the context of India. Now, what was the reason? What was the reason? Why did government of India go for economic planning? What were the reasons? Let's go point by point. At the time of independence, most of the sector, right, most of the contribution to GDP came from agriculture sector. Right, large part of contribution, more than 50%, 55% in many years, the contribution to GDP came from agriculture sector. And more than 70% of the working population was there in the agriculture sector. But please understand this, one of the features associated with agriculture sector at this point of time was that the farmers who were part and parcel of agriculture sector, they did not have sufficient amount of earnings. They did not have sufficient amount of earnings. And before this, if you ask me, sir, why they did not have sufficient amount of earnings? In modern India or even in your high school, etc., have you come across revenue systems in India? Land revenue systems in India? For example, when you read about modern India, when you study modern India, you'll come across this zamindari system, mahalwari system, etc., etc. And what is the common thread between all these land revenue settlement systems? What is the common thread? Most of the revenue will go to the government. Only a small chunk of the revenue, only a small part of the revenue will be left with the farmer. Only a small part. Right, so at that point of time, no doubt contribution mainly came from agriculture sector. 70% of the workers were there in agriculture sector. Incomes were very, very small. And when the incomes are very small, can I say investment will also be very small? Does it make sense or not? When the incomes are very small, investment will also be very small. And investment is very small. What about revenue? What about incomes again? Again, the incomes will be very small. So at the end of the day, they are investing money. I'm not saying they're not investing any money. At the end of the day, because their investments are very limited, very small amount of money, can I say continuously, they will keep on falling into a cycle or a trap where their incomes will not be very high, investments will also be not very high. All of you okay with this? That there is a trap, there's a cycle, right? Where their investments are lesser, returns will be lesser. Again, investments lesser, returns are lesser. This, they call this as low level equilibrium trap. Low level equilibrium trap. And this concept of low level equilibrium trap was given by Richard P. Nelson. Please remember the name of the economist. UPSC can ask you this. The concept of low level equilibrium trap was given by Richard P. Nelson. And if you ask me, sir, what do you mean by this? It is basically a situation wherein incomes of the farmers, of the population, most of the working population was lesser, hence savings are lesser, investments lesser, again incomes are lesser. Population will remain in poverty. They will not, they'll find it very difficult to come out of this poverty because it's a cycle. It's basically a trap. Okay, so India had fallen into low level equilibrium trap. Second one, resources were very scarce. Right, the resources that we had were very scarce. Now government of India had to decide, should I allow the private sector to take up all the resources or should I take up the resources? Should I monitor which resource will go to whom? Right? Should I ensure that the resources will be utilized by the public sector companies? Or should I allow the private sector to take up these resources for producing goods and services? Government of India decided that if I allow the private sector to operate, private sector will only run behind profit. That's a fact, by the way. Private sector will run only behind profit. Private sector will not be concerned about reducing poverty. Private sector will not be concerned about reducing regional disparities in India. Right? Even today, right? Is there anyone in the classroom who will disagree with me? Let me know. Even today, can I say there are regional disparities? Regional disparities means some of the states contribute very high to the GDP, per capita incomes in the states is very high. And on the other side, there are some of the states where the per capita incomes are very, very low. So even today, there is a huge regional disparities in India. So at that point of time, Government of India felt, if I allow the private sector to utilize the resources, they will run behind the profit. They will not be worried about social welfare. Who is worried about social welfare? Me. I should make a plan. I should decide how the resources will be utilized, etc. So resources are very scarce. Government wanted to provide for social justice. That is, right, let's say employment generation, increase in the per capita incomes, right, resources allocation to agriculture sector, etc. These are all social justice reforms only, right? So Government of India, for this reason, decide to go for planning to protect national interest in the age of globalization. At this point of time, right, reason is simple. The British government did not promote industries in India. There's a very famous saying. I'm pretty sure all of you remember in the high school have come across this. If not, again in modern India classes, you'll come across it. The Britishers converted India as a source of their raw material and as a market for their finished goods. Correct? Is the statement correct or not? I'll repeat it again. The Britishers converted India as a source of their raw materials and a market for their finished goods. They would simply take out the raw material from India, manufacture there, and bring final goods, sell in India. They did not promote industrialization in India. They were basically looking at India as a source of raw material and a market for their goods. So industrialization was not very well developed. It was not promoted during the British government. So Government of India looked at it and said, if I open up the market, if I allow the private sector, foreign companies to come into India, my domestic companies will not be able to survive. That's a fact, by the way. My domestic companies will not be able to survive. These are infants. There's an argument called as infant industry. Infant industry protection. What is this infant industry protection? Imagine you have got independence now, right? And within a couple of years, some of the industries have started being set up. Now, these are very, very new companies, very, very new industries. They have started operating very recently. Infants. Should you allow them to compete with foreign companies by allowing the foreign companies to come into India? If that happens, industries in India will not be able to survive competition. That argument to protect these industries is called as infant industry protection. Right, so Government of India decided, let me protect these industries, let me not open up the market. And finally, for having better coordination, cooperation between the central government as well as the state government. That was also one of the reasons why Government of India decided, let me make a plan. Let me make a plan. Let's not allow only private sector to decide everything. These are certain factors why we adopted the concept of 5-year plans in India. Now, even before planning commission was set up, I'll go to planning commission, don't worry. Even before planning commission was set up, there were multiple plans which were proposed by various experts. Multiple plans. But none of these plans, please understand, these were mostly proposed before independence. Mostly proposed before independence. None of these plans have been implemented because these were proposed even before we got the independence. Right, so that is the reason after independence, Government of India set up a planning commission, and planning commission started making 5-year plans in India. So before that, what used to happen, right? How many plans were proposed? Let me give you certain examples. The first ever plan, I repeat, the first ever plan was proposed by Dr. M. Vishweshwaraya. Back in the year 1934, Dr. M. Vishweshwaraya proposed a 10-year plan for India. Remember this, a 10-year plan for India. In this particular 10-year plan, Dr. M. Vishweshwaraya proposed that the private sector will not be able to meet all the requirements of the economy. Private sector can't do that. So government has to play a very important role, ensure that certain production will be done by the government also, certain resources will be controlled by the government also. Do not allow only private sector to produce all the goods and services. They cannot satisfy the demand for all the goods and services. Government should also participate in the economy. Second, Dr. M. Vishweshaya proposed that there should be a commission for planning, basically planning commission. Dr. M. Vishweshaya proposed that there should be a planning commission which is to be set up, and this planning commission should have around 5 to 7 members. The planning commission should have around 5 to 7 members, and this planning commission should prepare a plan for 10 years for development of India. And if all these provisions which were proposed, for example, right, there was a proposal to double the national income. At this point of time, again you're talking about 1934. Today you might talk about you might talk about 3.3 trillion dollars, etc., etc. You're talking about 1934. So back in this 1934, the proposal was to basically double the national income from somewhere around 2,900 crore rupees to over 5,000 crore rupees. Increase the national income from somewhere around 2,900 crore rupees to more than 5,000 crore rupees. Apart from this, the 10-year plan also proposed to increase the investment, to increase the overall investment in the Indian economy. To how much? From somewhere around 300 crore rupees to somewhere around 1,000 crore rupees. And the plan proposed that in 10 years, the investment in the economy, the investment in the Indian economy should be increased from 300 crore rupees to 1,000 crore rupees. And the overall production of the goods or the products in the domestic market should be increased to more than 2,000 crore rupees. It was somewhere around 400 crore. It was proposed to be increased to more than 2,000 crore rupees. So if all of these are implemented, the plan basically estimated that the national income of Indian economy would double in the next 10 years. But did we implement this particular plan? Absolutely no. It was proposed well before independence, so this plan was not implemented. After this plan, there was one more important plan, that is Bombay Plan, which was proposed in 1943. Some books will write it as 44, but many of the experts argue that it is in 43. So Bombay Plan was proposed by group of industrialists. It was proposed by group of industrialists, in simple terms, businessmen. So many businessmen in Bombay. Why it is called as a Bombay Plan? Right, around 6 to 7 businessmen came together in Bombay and proposed a plan for India for 15 years. And because it was proposed by businessmen living in Bombay, this is called as a Bombay Plan. What was proposed in the Bombay Plan? Right, the simple point is that this plan targeted 15 years, not 10 years. It targeted 15 years. And in this particular plan, they targeted development of infrastructure. They wanted more and more investment to be done in the development of infrastructure. For example, have a look at this. Double the road network that we have, increase the coastal shipping, right? Develop consumption goods industries, etc. So invest in the infrastructure, increase the production. That was basically the argument. And because of that, employment would be generated, the demand for the goods and services would be higher, overall quality, overall standard of living will start increasing. In fact, as per this proposal, in a span of 15 years, we would be able to double the per capita income, from $22 to $45. Again, was this plan implemented? No, even this plan was not implemented completely because we had no independence at that point of time. Third plan was proposed by National Planning Committee, NPC, National Planning Committee. National Planning Committee was set up in the year 1938 under the chairmanship, of Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru. Now, before you start asking me, sir, what was proposed, etc., etc., NPC, that is National Planning Committee, came out with a lot of recommendations. But the emphasis or the importance at this particular point of time was not given to the recommendations of National Planning Committee for a very simple reason. Next year, that is in the year 1939, please tell me what happened in the year 1939. What do you think? A very important event. What do you think happened in the year 1939? Can I simply say Second World War? Second World War broke out. And tell me, right, when you have read in modern India or let's say high school, etc., during the Second World War, was there a discussion about how to make plans for India, or was there a discussion about should we support British government or not? Right? What happened to the Congress government? What happened to the chairman of Indian National Congress? Right? Etc. Etc. I hope you understand all these particular points. So that is the reason not so much of importance was given to the National Planning Committee National Planning Committee that was set up by Indian National Congress. Although they have given recommendations, not so much important. They were not implemented. Done. Right. So these are certain important plans which have been proposed. Are these the only plans? Of course, no. There is one more plan, People's Plan. Remember this, right? There is one more plan by the name of People's Plan. People's Plan was proposed by Mr. M.N. Roy. People's Plan was proposed by Mr. M.N. Roy. M.N. Roy is a very famous personality associated with the Communist Party, right? M.N. Roy. M.N. Roy proposed a People's Plan. There is also one more plan, Sarvodaya Plan. Sarvodaya Plan. Right? There is one more plan, Gandhian Plan, etc. Right? Sarvodaya Plan, Gandhian Plan, etc. etc. Done? Right? So these are certain. Okay, sir, voice is not coming. My dear, if voice is not coming, please hit the refresh button. There is one button, fix audio, or you can hit the refresh button. Okay, so automatically voice will come. Right, so Sarvodaya Plan and Gandhian Plan. By the way, many of you will be confused with the term Gandhian Plan. If UPSC will ask you who proposed Gandhian Plan, many of you will end up saying Mr. Gandhi proposed, right, or MK Gandhi proposed Gandhian Plan. Absolutely no. Gandhian Plan was proposed by one more person, SN Agarwal. SN Agarwal. Gandhian Plan was proposed by Sriman Narayan Agarwal, SN Agarwal. Okay, so don't be confused. Okay, now come back to the point here. These are different plans. Different plans. Don't read everything in detail. UPSC is not going to ask you. Right? If at all they will ask which was proposed by whom. Dash plan was proposed by dash. This kind of combination they can ask. But I don't think UPSC will ask you write a note on right the details of people's plan, right, which was not even adopted, which was not even implemented. Okay, done. Right. So, what was the process that was followed for 5-year plans? What was the process? Right. First point, the plan 5-year plan was prepared by Planning Commission. Okay. The 5-year plan was prepared by Planning Commission. I'll come to the composition, etc. in a minute. Don't worry. Now, once the Planning Commission would prepare the plan, they would send this plan to one more authority called as National Development Council. National Development Council, NDC. Once the National Development Council will approve it, once right NDC will approve it, now that will be taken up. That will be taken up by the Union Cabinet. That will be taken up by Union Government's Cabinet. Once that will be approved, it will be sent to the Parliament, and after this, the 5-year plan would be implemented. Would be implemented by the central government as well as state governments. Done. So this was basically the process that was followed for preparation as well as implementation of 5-year plans. Now, what is the composition of Planning Commission? What is the composition of National Development Council? When they were set up? Are these constitutional bodies, etc., etc.? Let's have a look at it. The National Development Council was established in 1952, but before that, we established a Planning Commission. Planning Commission was established in 1950. Point number two, the National Development Council as well as Planning Commission, both were established through executive authority of Government of India. I'll repeat the statement. Both the National Development Council as well as Planning Commission, both were established under executive authority of Government of India. Executive authority means what? Government of India through its order. I repeat, Government of India through its order, executive authority will set up, right, this kind of an authority. That is the authority which is set up through executive resolution. There is no constitutional provision, right? It also means in the Constitution of India, there is no article which discusses a planning commission or which discusses a National Development Council. There are no provisions regarding that. Okay, now the planning commission was established by the union government. The prime minister, I repeat, the prime minister, right? The prime minister was the chairperson, was the chairman of the planning commission. And right, who the prime minister, whoever is the prime minister, by default became the chairman. But apart from the chairperson or the chairman, we also had a deputy chairman. Again, if you ask me, sir, who appointed deputy chairman? Again, it was the government of India. Government of India appointed deputy chairman, and the deputy chairman was the most important functionary. The deputy chairman was the most important functionary. Why? Prime Minister, no doubt, is the chairman, but the Prime Minister will not be involved in the day-to-day operations of Planning Commission. It's not possible. He is not involved or she is not involved. So the deputy chairman was the most important functionary who looked after the functions of the Planning Commission. And apart from the deputy chairman, finance minister, other ministers who were appointed by the government of India, as well as certain number of experts were appointed as members of planning commission. Now, please look at the composition of planning commission. Answer to my simple question. Can you see any representation of the states in the planning commission? Let me know. Can you see any representation of the states in the planning commission? No. But states are very important because union government can formulate a plan. That is through planning commission. They can formulate a plan. But don't you think states will play a very important role in implementing the 5-year plans? They are also very important because you are going to use the state government machinery. State government authorities or officials will be utilized for implementation of the plan. That is a precise reason 1952 there was one more authority set up. There was one more authority, National Development Council. The National Development Council, in essence, was basically having the planning commission composition, but along with the planning commission, we had a representation of the union territories as well as chief ministers. We had representation from union territories as well as chief ministers. So it was in the National Development Council that there was a representation of the states, but in the Planning Commission, there was no representation of the states. Please remember that. And if you make a comparison, which we will do, don't worry. If you make a comparison between a Planning Commission and Niti Aayog, in Niti Aayog, today there is a representation of the states. In the Niti Aayog, right, within Niti Aayog, there is one council where, right, there is a representation of the states. So unlike Planning Commission, in Niti Aayog, there is a representation. So in Planning Commission, no. In Niti Aayog, yes. Okay, so that is basically the composition of both Planning Commission as well as the NDC. But I'll ask you one more question now. Planning Commission was responsible for creating plans. Don't you think one of the biggest problems related to 5-year plans in India, looking at the composition, will be that in the process of preparing plan, there was nobody who was representing states. Correct? This will be one of the biggest criticism. Look at it and do let me know. Planning Commission creates plan. They will create a plan, give it to NDC. NDC will look at it, approve it, give it to cabinet. But the Planning Commission, which is creating a plan, there is no representation of the states. That is the biggest criticism. Please remember this. Okay. Now, what were the goals? What were the objectives of Planning Commission? What they wanted to achieve? They wanted to achieve 4 very important goals. Again, long term, not very short term, long term goals. But apart from 4 long-term goals, we will also establish the fact that you will be able to achieve many other goals. Now, what are the goals? Growth, equity, modernization, and self-reliance. Growth, equity, modernization, and self-reliance. Now, what is this growth? What are we talking about growth here? Initially, for first couple of 5-year plans, I repeat, initially for first couple of 5-year plans, Government of India targeted growth. Government of India was very much focused on growth only. Why? Please understand this. Government of India believed in a theory called as trickle down theory. I'll repeat the statement. In the first couple of 5-year plans, especially in the first 5-year plan, second 5-year plan like this, Government of India targeted higher growth. Why? Government of India believed in a theory called as trickle down theory. Now, many of you ask me, sir, what is the meaning of trickle down theory? Let me explain it. Listen to me very carefully. Trickle down theory says that if the government will provide certain benefits to rich people or businessmen, these benefits will also reach other sections of the society. I will repeat the statement. Listen to me carefully. What does the trickle down theory say? It says that if the government will provide certain benefits to the rich people, to the businesses, businessmen, etc., these benefits will again flow to other people in the society. That is the reason it is called as a trickle down. Trickled means flow down. Trickle means flow down. Trickle down theory. How, sir? How trickle down theory will work out? This is expectation. This is the expectation. How it will happen? Listen to me. Imagine I'm a businessman. Okay, I'm not. But let's say I'm a businessman. And when I'm a businessman, the government, let's say hypothetically, will reduce the income tax to 0% to me. I'm a very rich businessman. Government will reduce the income tax rate to 0%, which is applicable to me. From 30%, let's say, it will be reduced to 0%. Now look at the sequence. Please look at the sequence. Can I say because the tax rate applicable to me is 0% now, I will invest more money which I've earned in the form of profits. Correct? Anybody has a problem with this? From my earnings, I don't have to pay any taxes to government. So what I'll do? I will invest more. I will set up more factories now. And when I will increase my investment, what will happen to employment? Let me know. What do you think will happen to employment? Employment will also start increasing. And if employment will increase, what about wages earned by the people? What about wages earned by the people? Wages earned by the people will also start increasing. Right? So now look at it. Government of India has provided benefit to me. Correct? Government of India has provided certain benefit to me. But because of this benefit, can I say many other people in the society are also getting benefits? Yes or no? Many other people are also getting benefits, right? Can I say benefits are flowing down to other parts of the society? Let me know. Others participate. Only 2 or 3 people are answering now. Most of you will be like, sir, we are busy with match. We are fed up of economics. I want to see whether Australia will win or they will lose against Pakistan. I'm sorry, Afghanistan now. Right? So again, don't worry about that. Focus on economics. So government is providing benefit. But can I say these benefits are also ensuring that other sections of the society are also benefited? Can I say benefits are flowing down? Benefits are trickling down. Hence, this is called as trickle down theory. Hence, this is called as trickle down theory. There is no guarantee that this will happen. I will tell you the problem now. There is no guarantee that this will always happen. Theoretically, it looks very good, right? Theoretically, nice arrow mark from government to me. I will invest, right? I will create employment, etc., etc. Theoretically, it looks very good, but realistically, right? In real life, does it happen? Not necessarily. Not necessarily. I'll prove it why. Government of India back in 2019 reduced corporate taxes, correct? Government of India back in 2019 reduced corporate taxes. Yes, they reduced corporate taxes. And what they expected? Similar thing, correct? What they expected was a similar thing. Government will reduce corporate tax. Companies will have more money now. They will invest more money. They will create more employment. That was expected. But has it happened? I'm pretty sure I've given you one article regarding the same thing. Has it happened? No, it has not happened. Why? Companies took this extra profit because the corporate tax rate is low. Companies took this extra profit, repaid the loans. They paid the loans. They have borrowed from the bank. They repaid the loans rather than investing money. And on the other side, government, because it has reduced the corporate tax, don't you think its tax revenue, tax receipts took a hit? Tax receipts went down. And if your tax receipts will go down, your reliance on borrowing will increase. Right? Are you able to make sense? Are you able to connect the dots now? On one side, companies took the benefit. They repaid their loans. They reduced the debt rather than investing. And on the other side, government, right? The tax receipts of the government annually went down by more than 1 lakh crores, which means your foregoing tax receipts, which also means your dependence on the borrowing has increased. Will your fiscal deficit not increase? Of course, yes. Right? Your fiscal deficit will increase. Your revenue deficit will increase. That is a problem. And your fiscal deficit increases, revenue deficit increases. Can it affect your rating, sovereign credit rating? Think. Please connect the dots. Can it start affecting your sovereign credit rating? Of course, yes. So there are so many connections. There are so many connections, right? So I hope you understand. Government expected trickle down will happen. Has it happened? No, it did not happen. It did not happen. And that is a precise reason after a couple of 5-year plans, after the first couple of 5-year plan, Government of India changed policy. They said, okay, income inequality, I want to reduce, but it is not coming down. I want to promote more jobs. It is not happening. So whatever I've implemented, it is not working. So let me change the policy. Let me change the policy. Right. So this was the reason why Government of India changed the policies over a period of time. So first one is growth. Second one is equity. Income inequality is there. Reduce them. Regional disparities are there. Reduce them. Right. There are income inequalities between men and women. Reduce them. Right. So that was basically the idea under the equity concept. Right. So one is growth. Second one is equity. Third one is modernization. Over a period of time, you'll have to start adopting new technologies, better kind of a technology, better equipments, so that your productivity will start increasing. Your productivity will improve, start increasing. Right? That is modernization. And finally, self-reliance. The current version of self-reliance is nothing but Atmanirbharta. Today we talk about Atmanirbharta. And earlier, after independence, governments tried self-reliance. What is the argument under self-reliance? We were dependent on capital, investment. We used to borrow a lot of money to invest in India. So we were dependent on import of capital. We were dependent on import of machineries. We were dependent on, right, a lot of raw materials. We were dependent on even food grains. So Government of India, that is the Planning Commission, through Planning Commission, targeted self-reliance. We need to reduce the import dependence under all of them, promote, right, the production, right, the the import dependence should come down, production should be increased within the domestic market. That was basically the argument of self-reliance. So these were the four long-term goals. But now you tell me, if you can achieve growth and equity, will it not automatically mean poverty will come down in India? I've not written that, but you tell me. If you promote growth and equity, does it not mean automatically poverty eradication was also the long-term goal? What about employment generation? If you're talking about growth, if you're talking about modernization, if you're talking about equity, will it not lead to employment generation? I've not written it, but can I say that is also a goal of planning commission? Right? So I hope you understand. I've written only four, but if you can think of it, connect the dots, you'll get many more objectives of planning commission. Okay. Now, right, 5-year plans in India. How many total 5-year plans in India? 12 5-year plans in India. Now, rather than saying 5-year plans every time, I'll be using the short form acronym for this, FYP. FYP. FYP, 5-year plan. Because saying 5-year plan every time, multiple times, very difficult. I'll simply say FYP. Totally 12 FYPs have been implemented in India. Starting from the first in 1951, the 12th was supposed to be implemented from 2012 to 2017. But 2014-2015, as already mentioned, Government of India abolished a planning commission. And when you abolish a commission which is responsible for implementation of the plan, automatically the plan will not be implemented. That is the reason the 12th 5-year plan was not implemented completely. In between itself, because of the abolition of planning commission, the plan ended abruptly. But now, how do you remember these 12 5-year plans? Because the problem related to these particular 12 5-year plans is that these have not been implemented successively. Continuously, these have not been implemented. You will see that there are certain gaps. Suddenly, UPSC might ask you the 7th 5-year plan. This will be the easiest question as far as I'm concerned. The 7th 5-year plan, the duration is from this to this. Right? Let's say this is one of the statements in the prelims. How do you remember it? Because you cannot sit in the UPSC exam, start from 1951, 5, 5, 5, 5 like this. You can't do that. It's very difficult. I'll give you a trick. Please do let me know whether it is easier with this trick or not. If you want to buy hard, do it. I don't have any problem. But my recommendation, remember, whether through by hearting or using a trick, entirely left to you. I would recommend strongly, remember it. This is the trick that I will follow. There are totally 12 5-year plan. I will divide all the 12 5-year plans into 3 groups. In the first group, I will write 3 5-year plans. In the second group, I will write 4 plans. And in the third group, I will write 5 plans. All of you okay with this? And how do you remember 3, 4, and 5? Consecutive numbers 3 and 4, 3, 4, and 5. But why 3, 4, and 5? Let me tell you the trick here. From 1951 to 1966, please tell me, is there any gap between these 5-year plans? Please look at it. Just a simple trick. From 1951 to 1966, is there any gap between these first 3 FYPs? Absolutely no gap. 51 to 56, 56 to 61, 61 to 66. So that is the first 3. And after that, you will see there is a gap. Between the third and fourth, there is a gap. Why? I'll tell you. During the implementation of third 5-year plan, we fought one war with China. We fought another war with Pakistan. 2 wars. And apart from that, in multiple years, there was no rainfall. There was a drought-like situation in India. Now, because of multiple reasons, the government of India faced multiple issues in the third 5-year plan. And that is the precise reason after 1966, immediately we should have implemented fourth 5-year plan. Government said no. we will not implement fourth 5-year plan. Let's take a plan holiday. Let's take a plan holiday. Let's take a holiday. Holiday means what? No 5-year plans. Let's take a plan holiday, which is nothing but no 5-year plans. Rather than having 5-year plans, we had annual plans. We had annual plans here. That is the reason you will see from 1966 to 69, no 5-year plan. There was annual plan. Now after 69, look at it. 69 to 74, 74 to 79, and suddenly you will see rather than 79, it will become 80 to 85 and 85 to 90. I'll tell you why. I'll give you historical context. You will be able to connect the dots. 69 to 74, 74 to 79, 80 to 85, and 85 to 90. 4 5-year plans in the second grouping. Now, many of you ask me, sir, why? Why? Right? Why are you making our life difficult? Why is it not continuous like this? My dear, 74 to 79, please tell me, all of you heard of emergency? Correct? All of you heard of emergency during this particular period. When emergency was lifted, elections were conducted, a new government was formed. Simple. Right? Emergency was lifted, elections were conducted, new government was formed. And when you have a new government, in fact, the Morarji Desai government, right? There was a movement called as a Jai Prakash Narayan movement, and some of you are asking, sir, who proposed the Sarvodaya plan? And some of the students were asking, Sarvodaya plan. Who proposed the Sarvodaya plan? Sarvodaya plan was proposed by Jai Prakash Narayan. So understand the logic here. The emergency was lifted, elections were conducted, a new government was formed. Mr. Morarji Desai was the prime minister. Mr. Morarji Desai or the government concluded that the current process of having 5-year plans has no relevance. We should not have these 5-year plans. We should have a different process of 5-year plans, and that is the reason the fifth 5-year plan was discontinued, and sixth plan was introduced, which was a rolling plan. 78, which was a rolling plan. Rolling plan means what? There is, let's say, a 5-year plan. Understand this rolling plan. There is a 5-year plan. The 5-year plan will be divided into 1-year plans. Okay? 1 year, 1 year, 1 year, like this. So 5-year plan will be divided into 5 plans for every 1 year. And why this is called as a rolling plan? Imagine you will implement the first plan, that is the first year plan, and based on your experience, now you will make changes to the second year plan. Now you will implement second year plan based on your experience. Now you will make changes to the third year plan. Again, implement third year plan based on the experience, make changes to fourth year plan. So can I say continuously? Rolling means continuously. Continuously, the plans are being changed. All of you okay with this? Continuously, the plans are being changed. And because the continuous change is taking place in the plan, this process was called as rolling plan. This process was referred to rolling plan. But before we could implement all these rolling plans, again there was a change in the government, right? Mrs. Indira Gandhi became the prime minister all over again, and she discontinued the rolling plan which was implemented by the previous government, and again reintroduced the concept of 5-year plans. And that is the reason you will see there is a gap. There is a gap between the fifth 5-year plan and the sixth 5-year plan. Okay. And after that, the third grouping, right? The third grouping, 85 to 90, continues now. 80 to 85, 85 to 90. Now come to the third grouping. Now you will see there is a gap again between the second group and the third group. Right? The seventh 5-year plan ended in 90. Eighth 5-year plan started in 92. Why? Again, there was a plan holiday. Again, there was an issue in the economy, so we took a plan holiday. Rather than having 5-year plans, we had annual plans. And after that, we again started implementing annual plans. Okay, we started implementing 5-year plans. So 92 to 97, 97 to 02, right? 97 to 02, 02 to 07, 07 to 12, and 12 to 17. The last grouping will have 5 FYPs. All of them have been implemented consecutively or successively like this. So now all of you will be okay. All of you are okay with how do you remember the 5-year plans? Which year, right? In which year, right? What has happened, etc., etc. It's very simple. First 3 continuous, then take 3 years, then simply take 3 years gap, 69, then 69 to 74, 74 to 79, then 1 year gap, 80 to 85, 85 to 90. One more group is over. Then take 2 year gap, 92 to 97, 97 to 02, 02 to 07, 7 to 12, 12 to 17. This is how I generally remember. If you want to remember in this way, remember it. If you want to simply by heart it, by heart it. But I would recommend rather than by hearting, try to remember tricks like this. What happened in which year, historical context, etc. It will help you in the exam. Trust me, it will help you in exam. Why? You will by heart it, I don't have any doubt. But don't you think sometimes under pressure, because you're under pressure, your brain may not work efficiently? Correct or not? Because you're under a lot of pressure in the UPSC exam, right? Your brain may not work correctly at that point of time. So you have by hearted. But in that moment, your brain might simply say, right, it is wrong. And you will not be able to recollect what you have by hearted, etc. That is the reason. That's the reason. Okay. Now next, right? What was the target given? What was the target achieved? Should you remember the table? No. Don't waste your time. Do not remember this table. Why? It's very difficult to remember it. Right? I'm not giving a challenge to all of you. Please do not take it as a challenge and say, how can you say I can't remember? I will waste my 1 year and by heart the table. Don't waste your time. Why? For every 5-year plan, a target has been given and something has been achieved. Will you be able to remember all the targets correctly with all the achieved growth correctly? It's not simply by hearting 24 numbers. I hope you understand the gravity of the situation. It's not simply by hearting 24 numbers. No. It is by hearting correct combination in consecutive way. You cannot simply say 5% growth, right? Put it for any 5-year plan. No, you can't do that. 6% GDP growth rate, put it for any 5-year plan. You can't do that. You are destroying planning then. So that's the reason it's very difficult. Then what you should remember, this is what I would recommend. Remember first 5-year plan. Remember first 5-year plan, important. Why? First 5-year plan is anyways important. Second 5-year plan is also important. Next class I'll tell you why. The 7th 5-year plan is very important for a very simple reason. Please look at what we have achieved in terms of growth before 7th 5-year plan. Can I say 7th 5-year plan is the first time when we have been able to achieve 6% GDP growth rate? Yes or no? 7th 5-year plan is for the first time when we have been able to achieve 6% GDP growth rate. That's the reason it is important. That's the reason it's very important. And in fact, if you look at the 7th 5-year plan, it is for a duration 1985 to 1990. 1985 to 1990. 7th 5-year plan is also very important for a very simple reason. For the first time, agriculture sector, registered a double-digit growth rate. Double-digit growth rate. For the first time, agriculture sector registered a double-digit growth rate. That is in the financial year 89. In the financial year 89, it achieved somewhere around 10.3% GDP growth. 10.3% growth rate, not GDP, 10.3% growth rate. That is the reason the 7th 5-year plan is a very, very important for us. Okay. Right. Those who are asking why 6% is important, why not 5%, my dear. You are talking about 1980s and 1970s. It was difficult to achieve 4%. It was difficult to achieve 3% also at that point of time. So it was that duration when we have achieved 6%. 6% is a very good number. 6% is a very, very good number. Then tell me, why do you target $5 trillion GDP? Simple question to all of you. Right? I'll stop after this. Why should you target $5 trillion GDP? Why not target 8 trillion? Why not target 20 trillion? Why only 5 trillion? I hope you understand. There are certain significances. 5 trillion is a very, very good number to be at. In the same way, you're talking about 1980s, 1970s. There's a criticism that we are not able to go beyond 4.5%. Right? We were not able to go beyond 4.5% GDP growth rate. So it was that particular duration when we were able to achieve 6% GDP growth rate. That was the precise reason why seventh five-year plan is so important. Done? Okay, so these are the different five-year plans. These were the targets. These were what was achieved. My recommendation is try to remember 3 to 4. That's more than sufficient. Okay, so let me stop the discussion today here. We'll continue with the five-year plans in the next session. That is basically I'll start discussing five-year plans now. Every five-year plan, I'll give you 2 to 3 important points. 2 to 3 important points, or let's say 3 to 4 important points for every five-year plan that we can take it up on Saturday. Now, again, before I wind up the discussion and start taking up your questions, certain important points. Reminders. 1. Read current affairs. Please read current affairs. Do not skip current affairs. Second, revise. As much as possible, revise. Third point, Saturday 12 p.m. Afternoon 12 p.m. we will start the discussion. We will complete the remaining portion, that is planning is left out. And after that, employment, unemployment, IMF and inclusive growth. It is left out. We'll complete on Saturday. Next, right, the feedback form has been sent to all of you. Please provide your honest feedback, right? The link is there in the comment section. You can download it from there if you have not received a mail regarding the feedback form. Now, so if you have any kind of questions regarding what I've discussed, please do let me know. Otherwise, we can wind up the discussion. Explain types of plans. There are two types. That is basically the indicative plan and imperative plan. Indicative, right, where private sector along with the government will be responsible for the implementation. Imperative is a central planning where only the government will prepare the plan and implement the plan. Those who are asking, sir, the list of the articles again, I have pasted a link again. Let me know. I've pasted the link again, right? So you will see a comment with the name of Sham. That is me, by the way. If you're still wondering who is this Sham, it's my name, right? So you will see a comment, right, by the name of Sham. It is the link of the articles. Okay, so you can download those articles. Okay. What about doubt session? After I complete this Saturday, maybe next Saturday, again, it will be scheduled. When, what time, you will come to know. Don't worry. Let me complete the syllabus first. Only then I can take up the doubt session. Okay. Job opportunity point is not clear, my dear. If you will set up, let's say, waterways, you will hire people to load goods into ship, correct? You will hire people to operate warehouses in the coastal region. You will hire people to operate the ships. Job creation. Okay. In NDC, why not the CMs represent the union territory? In NDC, why not the CM represent the union territory? Why should the CM represent union territories? CMs are for states. Union territories have their own, right, representatives. So they will have their own representatives. Okay. How do I revise it? My dear, revision, I would recommend revision. Try to make mind maps. Saturday, I'll give you certain mind maps. Okay. Saturday, I'll give you certain mind maps. In the initial sessions, I've told you how to create mind maps. In Saturday session, I'll give you certain, let's say, 1 or 2 chapters mind maps. you can use that as a template, prepare mind maps for remaining chapters. My recommendation is try to use mind maps. Okay. Okay. Any other question? Any other question? Which class is there from tomorrow? My dear, the annual calendar is there with you. The full year calendar is there. Please check. Okay. Sir, our reforms have been done for infra issues in airports? Yes, we have discussed. Right, we have discussed the reform in airports such as FDI. Government allows FDI. Government is promoting PPP. Right. Government is also implementing an initiative called as UDAN. We have discussed all the three. Will you give articles after the classes? My dear, it's very difficult. You people will have to read the newspapers now. For 5 years, I've provided you hand holding services. Going forward, you develop that habit. You develop that habit. You'll have to read multiple articles. Okay. Okay. Done. Anything else? Anybody has any kind of other doubt? Should I stop the discussion now? Those are asking which is our next class from tomorrow? Environment. Environment and ecology. Right. So just check it. Environment and ecology. Okay. Okay, done then. So I'll stop the discussion today here. From tomorrow, another faculty, another subject, classes will be there. Only thing is another faculty and another subject. Regarding the left out part in this economy, GS paper 3 economy, we will discuss it on Saturday. We will complete the discussion on Saturday. Please do not worry. Right. So that's it from my side. Sir, it history class from tomorrow. Again, the SMEs have replied that it is environment and ecology. You will get the information. Please don't worry. Please don't worry. Whatever class is there, you will get the information. Right? It's not like we'll throw a surprise and tomorrow somebody else will be there. No, that information will be given to you. Please don't worry about it. Okay, done. So let me stop the discussion here itself. Saturday again we'll meet, right, and we'll complete the left out part. Take care, read well, right? Do not be worried. Do not complicate the subject too much. It's not that difficult. You are not expected to read at a post graduation level for GS paper. Please remember that. Do not try to read everything in detail about economics. That is not your job. That is not a requirement for GS paper. If your optional is economics, then I would simply say read more and more about economics. Right? Read all the intricacies of economics. But for GS paper, do not complicate it. Keep it simple. Keep it always simple. Okay, done. Take care. All the best. See you again on Saturday. Okay. So good night.